Welcome back to the Good, the Bad and the Ugly podcast with me, Tony Morell, proudly sponsored by Super Resin. This week's special guest is Elysia, a survivor, author and powerful voice for those who've lived through the darkest of experiences. Kate bravely shares her story of being groomed, trafficked and abused. We talk about the long road to healing, the failures of the system and how she's now using her voice to support other survivors and push for real change. Thanks for listening and watching this episode.
He started forcing his way in and I'm on the other side trying to push him out because to me this is a stranger. I prayed to God and I'd sort of said to God, if you do exist, get me out of here. I could have walked out into the street, been run over and I wouldn't have cared.
Welcome to the Good, the Bad and the Ugly podcast with me, Tony Morell, and this week's special guest is Kate Elysia. Really looking forward to you sharing the Good, the Bad and the Ugly with us. How are we?
I'm good, thank you. Nice to meet you. Really glad to be here.
Thanks very much for coming down and I know you've got a very, very powerful story. Your story's nothing but a tough, horrific one. And things we're going to talk about and relive shows what courage and bravery you've got, Kate. And, speaking out and raising awareness and helping others, not to sit in silence. So I just want to thank you, for what we are going to speak about and, like you say, your courage and your bravery. So thank you so much for coming.
Thank you.
So listen, I just want to start from where you're from, where you grew up, family life and school life was like.
So I'm from Shropshire and I grew up in Shropshire till I was 18. I moved out at 18 and then I moved to Telford. Now Telford's in Shropshire, but it's a town in Shropshire. Shropshire is kind of on the border of Wales, near to Birmingham, in case anybody needed to know where the location. But it's a very, very rural place. There's lots of fields, So my memories of school are actually on a coach on the way to school, seeing sheep and lambs and stuff. Yeah, it was a very picturesque place. People come there on holiday. People come there to there's some tourist destinations as well, like the Iron Bridge, where people come and see the Iron Bridge, and that's the 4th Iron Bridge built in the world, still standing because it's so strong. So you probably wouldn't expect the kind of things to happen that actually did happen to me. And school life was okay. Primary school was okay. Secondary school was okay. It wasn't great, but it wasn't like massively traumatic or anything. I got bullied a bit at school. There's quite a lot of bullying that goes around in lots of schools within the UK, so there's nothing unusual there. And then when I got to 16, and I'd finished my GCSEs, I went to sixth form college, which is between 16 and 18, and I started my A levels at college in Telford. Now I was getting a coach from the town that I lived in, and then that would go to college and back.
College, yeah.
Yeah.
What was you studying? What was you doing when you?
So I was my A levels. For the first year, I did 4 subjects. I did sociology, psychology, biology, and English combined language and literature. And then in my second year, I dropped out of sociology because I didn't like this subject, and I just didn't like the way I felt like the teacher was
running the course and stuff.
Yeah, it's hard not to have that bias, where I'm just talking about sociology now, but like they were talking about the class system and how young people who were in single parent families, for example, would become juvenile delinquents. And I was in a single parent family with my mum and my brother and sister, so I didn't like that concept that I would become.
You didn't agree with it, obviously.
No, and it really annoyed me. So I was getting really quite passionately angry in sociology. So I dropped out in the second year, and I just did my 3 A levels, which is kind of the standard amount anyway, expected to do.
Yeah. So what was college like? Friends and stuff like that, and did you have lots of friends at college, or was you just doing your own thing?
So at college, I really came out of my shell because so I'd had a bit of bullying at school, and then when I got to college, there was like zero bullying. I don't remember getting bullied at college. So everybody was really nice. I had friends. I had lots of friends. I was friends with the teachers. Well, not friends with the teachers, but I got on with the teachers, and I probably talked a bit too much in class, which I never used to do at school. So it was like all of a sudden I was like, couldn't shut me up.
Yeah.
And I remember one teacher trying to move me around and to stop me talking to the people next to me. And I just talked to the people next to me on the other side of the classroom. So there was nothing she could do. So I was a bit of a chatterbox, really. Yeah. So I really enjoyed college, and I remember it to be like one of the two of the best years of my life, which I think now has probably improved, and I've probably had some good years since. But at the time, they were good times.
Yeah. But did you like excel and stuff with with the A levels and stuff? Was you getting stuck in and?
Well, yeah. So when and I had so yeah. Anyways, a lot of people will understand like what I went through at college, but when I first started at 16, I had a test, and they found out that they give everybody this test, and they found out that I was dyslexic. And it was a big surprise to me because I'd gone through all the way through school and nobody had said anything. So it was 16 by the time anybody noticed. And so for the first probably 6 months, I struggled at college, but I got better because I had to figure out my own way of learning and my own way of revising where it would actually go into my head. And I think a lot of people with dyslexia have struggled with that. A lot of people in general have struggled with that horrible feeling of not knowing something and not being able to take it in and not learning it. And it's, to begin with, when you feel like you can't do it, that's like the worst feeling. But if you can like literally get up that mountain, once you get to the top and something just clicks in your brain and you get it. So sometimes it takes you longer to do that, but as I started to learn that eventually I would get it and I would understand it. Yeah. Then I didn't mind how long it took me to learn, because once I got it, I've got it. And in the past, I've had like people lose faith in me. I've had teachers lose faith in me and stuff because I'm not picking it up as quickly as they think I should be. They think I'm never going to get it, but I've learned how to ignore that and ignore my own feeling on the subject. And then when I've actually can do it, I've done it. So the first year was a bit. The first sort of 6 months was a bit difficult. I didn't do well on my first exams, but then I think you always need a trial run, and then once you've done it, you retake them and you get better.
You get better. Yeah. Was you still travelling to the college, or did you eventually end up moving to buy the college up into Telford?
Yeah. So for the first year, I was travelling to the college, and then in midway through the second year, family life broke down a little bit, and when I say a little bit, it wasn't anything massively violent or distressing. It was just my mum had a new boyfriend that moved in, and much as we wanted to like him, things were more difficult with an extra person in the house because I already shared a room with my sister. And so I was 18 and my sister was 16 going on 17, and my brother was 13 or 14 at that point. So with all the teenagers in the house, plus 2 adults as well, it was like a really crowded environment.
Of course, yeah. So
we were fighting a lot, and it wasn't as a pleasant place to be around. So I had got some friends who lived in the YMCA, and they advised me to kind of, you can get your own flat if you wanted to. And then my mum was like, "Oh, I want you to leave." Apparently that was just an argument, but
you took it upon and went,
I took it literally, yeah. So I took it very literally when my mum was like arguing with me and saying, "I don't want you to be in the house. I'm gonna, I want you to leave." And I didn't realise that she might calm down, that I could maybe talk to her, and that she might not mean it. You know, I didn't enter my head at the time. I actually thought she was serious. So then I was like looking for somewhere to live because my mum's kicking me out. So I found, anyway, I went to the YMCA. The YMCA found me a flat, and I moved in towards the end of my A levels. I got towards the end of the second year. So this would have been, I think I moved in the May. And my A levels were due to finish in the June, I think.
Yeah.
I can't remember exactly this was 2007, but you know, I can't be exact on the exact dates without like flicking through the history books.
Yeah, it's that long ago. But did you feel like you had that independence? You had your own little flat, and you know, what was it?
Yeah, well, actually, it was really, to begin with, like obviously, it was really exciting. So I was 18, and being 18 was exciting as well because you like you're 17 one day, and then you have a birthday and you become 18, and you're like waiting for that day that you turn 18 when you can like go and buy an alcoholic beverage or go to a club or something. I know that like a lot of my friends, that's what they wanted to do for their 18th birthday, was go to the club for the first time. I didn't actually do that. I can't remember what I did do you know, I think what I did for my 18th birthday was I think that I went to a human biology I sound like a square now, or a geek or something, but I went to a human biology like exhibition with my mum, and I think that's what I did for my 18th. And we saw like, you know, dead bodies that had been dissected and stuff, and you know, so that was the kind of person
That's what you were into, it. Yeah.
And but I did get a tattoo for my birthday when I turned 18, so I was all excited about that, you know. And I liked being 18 because you feel like, oh, I'm an adult now, so I can do this, I can do that, I can spend my money on whatever I like.
Do what I like, sort of.
Yeah. And I so we used to get EMA as well, which is education maintenance allowance, and I used to get £10 a week, and I only got £10. It was £10 to £30 a week, depending on how much your parents earn. So I had the minimum because my mum earned a half decent amount, so I only got 10, which was fine. But when I moved out, because I'd be on income support then, because I was 18, but I was still in education.
Yeah.
Then I got the £30 EMA, so I got that extra money as well, and I'd got my own job, so I'd got like a little part-time job in the January, and
what was you doing?
I worked in Primark.
In Primark.
Yeah. So I had like a 4-hour contract in Primark on a Saturday, but then they would give me more hours as well, so I could work in between my lessons at college. If I'd got any days off or afternoons off, I could do overtime at work, and then I'd come home with like maybe £200 a week or something, which was also really exciting.
You feel rich and stuff.
Yeah, because it was disposable income at that point. So I was like £200, so I'd buy like my own clothes. So that was like, being 18 was actually quite fun, and then having my own place was quite fun as well.
So you were still staying and living in the White, or did you get student accommodation then? Did you?
No, so I was just in the YMCA in when I moved in May. So the YMCA was a just, you know, so I'm not assuming everybody knows what it is, but it was supported accommodation for teenagers, and they kind of housed people between the ages of 16, going upwards really to sort of 21, maybe to 25 maybe, and they had a lot of care leavers and things like that, people who had children who had been in care, and then once they'd reached 18, you know, then it was sort of a step down service to sort of supported living, and you know, to help them with the next stage of their lives. And so I met some friends there as well. So I got my own friends from college. I'd also got a couple of friends from Primark, and then I met a couple of people in the YMCA with me as well. So I had my friend William, and I had my friend I forgot what I call her now in the book. I'm gonna have to give her a different name.
No problem.
Yeah. I'll call her Stacey, but that's not what I've called her in my
In your
book
book.
that's not out. Yeah. So I had Stacey and Craig, and then friends from college, and some of my friends from college went to Primark, worked at Primark, but I met them at Primark, and then we were like, oh, we'll go to the same college as each other.
As you do.
Yeah. So I started having like people come round my house, like friends round my house and things like that, and we would have like at the time there was a pizza place where we had they did a deal for £15. You could get two, like I think it was a 16-inch pizza and two 9-inch pizzas for £15. So we kept doing that. So we kept putting our money together to make up £15.
And everyone at your...
And then have everyone ask for a pizza party, and it would there'd be pizza left over. There was so much pizza.
There's so much pizza.
Yeah.
So from there, your friends William, Stacey, and stuff. Was you recognising around the town? Obviously, there was certain gangs in the area, but you were unaware of what these gangs were, or?
Well, to be honest, you're probably guilty of just being oblivious to it.
Yeah.
Because you're just getting on with your life.
Of course you are.
There was like loads
You're
of
18
stuff.
and you just you're just carrying on with your own bits and bobs. But in and around the town, there was certain gangs about, and you were probably, like you just said there, you're pretty unaware of exactly what these gangs are about. How did you, what we're getting to is obviously how did yourself and your friends become aware of what these gangs, who they was and what they were?
Yeah. So William had some friends who were Pakistani, and the thing is, so I don't think anybody should just assume warning signs as soon as you find out. As soon as you hear somebody's Pakistani, you don't have to have the warning.
You don't have that perception.
You shouldn't anyway. But he had some friends who were Pakistani. I was probably guilty of being too excited about that as well, because I think I just found life exciting. So I might have been eager to meet new friends and things like that. I don't know. I could have been. I was just so. I'd never met a dangerous person before. So put it like that.
You're at a time in your life,
been really
Kate,
safe. Yeah.
You're 18.
Everything
you're
had been
an adult,
safe.
young adult. Your life sort of, when you shouldn't have to think, you're like that though. You know what I mean?
No, exactly. And you shouldn't have to think that just because somebody's Pakistani that you
don't have the perception. Of course you don't know.
That you should be aware of, scared of them or something.
Yeah.
Like I've asked my mum since. I was like, did you know that Pakistanis thought that white girls were like sluts and slacks? Because I didn't know. Like I was completely oblivious to the dangers of like perceptions that the people might have of you. And my mum was like, yeah, and I was like, what? How come I'm the only person who didn't know this? And I just think that I thought everybody was equal, and actually white people are like the evil ones that think badly about everybody else. So we kind of say that this is what I thought when I was 18, not what I think now. So I'm just kind of reflecting on that 18-year-old state of mind. But I thought that white people were typically blaming black people for being criminals, but that doesn't mean they are. And then we know that Muslims pray 5 times a day, and we think that's excessive. And maybe we call them terrorists, but I don't even know if that had so I guess the 9/11 had happened by then, so we'd got that perception from being completely ignorant.
With the same, you're tarring everyone with the same sort of...
Exactly, but I was very aware that those were stereotypes, and that we shouldn't judge people just because of these negative views, and that we're probably wrong because human beings are human beings.
Yeah.
So I was also we used to go to these hippie camp as well. I called it hippie camp. on holiday, because my mum didn't have loads of money, so we used to go camping for our holidays, and there were hippies there, and they were very like, oh, save the trees, and I'm just taking the mick. I hope no hippies are offended by this, but like, yeah, they were like, save the trees and everybody's equal, and peace and unity and all of that kind of thing. So that was like indoctrinating my view of the world. So I was probably very, very innocent and naive to like bad things. I was like, I don't know, I was probably a bit of a sitting duck, to be honest. And so William knew these guys. I was just friendly with them, like normal friendly. People did used to say to me that I had a flirty personality, but it literally wasn't on purpose, and it wasn't sexually flirty. It was like friendly flirty. So I was just really, really friendly with people. So I didn't realise, like, I don't know, didn't realise that was inappropriate, or that how people might take that, or what I should do about it. If somebody told me I had a flirty, how do I be unflirty?
But whether you are that perception of being flirty or whatever, what we're going to speak about doesn't give people what's saying to do what they done.
No, exactly. Yeah.
I'm sorry, but that doesn't justify. No. It doesn't justify what we're going to speak about now.
No. I'm just talking about. So I don't blame myself. I can just see my vulnerability now.
You were a young 18-year-old young girl.
Yeah.
Let's be honest.
Yeah.
And these men took advantage of that.
And I was very naive, and I was very sheltered. So I'd never, I didn't know the dangers in front of me. So I probably made every mistake you could possibly make under the sun when you're in a room with someone who is like a dangerous sexual predator. But why is that my fault? It's not my fault, because I didn't know what was in front of me.
You didn't ask.
Yeah. But that's how they do it in the first place, is that they are targeting prey that doesn't know it's coming. So, they're actually looking for that vulnerability. And so that's what kind of gives them access to you. Because I know that we've heard these things about the type of victim they're choosing, like that it's only happening to white girls, which is not true. I think that statistically it's reported by services more often about white girls because it becomes more obvious. But I think there's a proportion of Asian and black girls as well that are getting completely unnoticed.
That are going
under the radar, yeah, because it doesn't get reported, no one's noticed, or that person hasn't come forward for whatever reason, or they've been ignored by the services, which we also know is an issue.
It's a fact.
Yeah. And the population of white girls that are being abused is in proportion, I think, to the population of the country. So that's why I think there's a higher rate of white girls. Anyway, so what shall I say about the next bit? So, sorry, I've gone off on a tangent.
Don't worry. Now then, everyone, sorry for interrupting this episode. Here's a message from our sponsor, Super Resin. They are specialists in resin driveways and flooring across North Wales and the North West. Whether it's a driveway, worktop or flooring, they've got you covered. For 10% off, use the code TGTBTU. Now let's get back to the episode.
So,
the first time.
Yeah, so
the first attack, should I say?
Yeah,
sorry.
So William had these friends. I was probably completely naive to what they might be thinking about me or planning about me. So totally vulnerable as AF, I like to say. And in my flat. So the thing is, William lived next door to me and I lived in my flat. So instantly when they meet me, they already know where I live. So there's no
getting away from
getting away from it. And there was some hints of there were some little hints of things being a bit amiss, that I missed the warning signs, but I couldn't believe it was real, to be honest, because they were like, they do like these blowjob symbols from across the road, and I used to think I thought it was a joke because I didn't think for a second that they meant anything by it, and so I
Just ignored it.
yeah, I just ignored it, and I was rejecting them, but I didn't even realise that they might be angry that I was rejecting them, because I thought it was a joke in the first place. So I literally wouldn't have expected them to actually expect me to respond to that and do an act for that.
Yeah, of course, yeah.
Yeah, so, oh, sorry for saying the BJ word as well, in case that gets me cut off. But anyway, so nothing happened, and then there was this talk about Shamil getting out of prison, and I didn't even know who Shamil was, so he was a stranger to me.
Yeah.
And then when he did get out of prison, somebody pointed him out to me. I was surprised that this person was the person they were talking about, because he didn't look anything like I was expecting him to look, and that's all I knew about him. And that's so really Shamil was a complete stranger to me. All I knew was his name and what he looked like, because somebody pointed him out from a distance.
And for what he'd been to jail for and stuff. And
they told me what he'd been to jail for, but I heard two different things, because one thing I heard was that he'd beaten somebody up in the churchyard and broken their jaw, and that person had ended up in hospital, and it was a random attack. I don't have any idea about what the truth is, because I never heard like facts. Okay, I just heard what was on the street. And the other thing I heard was that he'd broken into somebody's flat and stole some things, and one of the flats in the YMCA. So I think that they only said that to wind me up, because I was living in the YMCA, so I might be scared. So I think the actual reason was that he'd beaten somebody up. So I don't know, I don't actually know what the facts were. So he'd beaten someone up, he'd been to jail, he'd got out at half time, so he'd been in for about 1.5 years. And then about a week after he got out of prison, he knocked on my door. William was actually in my flat at the time, but William was 18 and he was vulnerable himself. Like I said before about what the YMCA was like, they had kids who had been in care. And I don't know his full story, really, because I think he was quite quiet about his history.
Yeah.
But he was quite vulnerable himself. And honestly, he wasn't an intentional perpetrator, if I could say if that makes any sense. He was vulnerable himself. He might have been being used by them for access to me or access to other girls, I don't know, but he wasn't doing it on purpose. That's all I can say about poor old William. So who I think he's probably, had quite a lot. I think he had mental health issues at the time, and I think he's still got mental health issues. So I feel so he also protected me in court. Okay, so he defended me in court, and he was one of my key eyewitnesses. So he really, really helped me. And this is the reason that I'm quite defensive about him, because I've had some people say negative things about William. So I feel like I need to try and say, in my eyes, he redeemed himself by being my key witness in
standing
court.
up in court and being there for you.
Because that must have been really hard for him,
Yeah.
And I don't want him to feel guilty, because he might have long-term mental health issues from this. He might exactly the same kind of trauma that I have from knowing that how many girls it was happening to is really, really upsetting, because you just remember all the girls that you didn't know were being abused at the time, and now were being abused. So sorry to not consistently do the story, but
Don't need to be sorry.
William was at my house. I had a knock at the door. I went to have a look who was at your door, which I think is a reasonable thing to do when somebody knocks your door. It was the middle of the day, it wasn't night time. So I looked through the spy hole, and there was a child there, a little Asian child, so about 10 years old at the most. So I thought that was odd, but you open the door because you want to see if the child's okay. Why is the child knock the door? What does the child
as well?
want?
Yeah.
And then when I opened the door, the child disappeared. So the child had run away. By the time the door was unlatching, he'd gone. And Shamil had put his foot in the door as soon as the door was open, and he'd been hiding behind the wall. So my door was here. He was actually hiding up against the wall.
The kid was like a decoy, basically.
Yeah, the kid was a decoy, and he shoved his foot in the door. He started forcing his way in, and I'm on the other side trying to push him out, because to me this is a stranger who I know his name is Shamil, but I also know he's a violent criminal. He's just got out of prison, so I don't really want him to.
You're feeling scared, fear?
Yeah, I was scared. Yeah, I was really scared. I was like trying to push him out. William shouted, "Is that Shamil?" And I said yes, and he said, "I'll just let him in." So I let go of the door, and I like, why did I do that? But in hindsight, why
He's
did I do
saying
that?
let him in, you're sort of like...
Yeah. And, you know, I thought about it since, and Darren Brown, like, does, I don't know if you've ever seen, like, his movies, but he's one of his TV shows, but Darren Brown, he's like a mind magician or whatever. He says to people, like, he can make people do things just by telling them to do it, but in conversation. So like he was giving somebody some blank money, blank dollars, when he was like, I think he was in America, I think it was New York or something, and he was pretending to pay for this very expensive item, and he was giving them blank dollars that were completely they were white pieces of paper, just the shape and
no value
touch
to them.
and he was saying take it, and the person took it without even looking, and he walked away for free with like this really expensive item, which he then took back. So when somebody says do something, for some reason we just automatically do it sometimes. Not all the time, but
but obviously when you've let him in, you know, and then...
yeah. So anyway, straight away he was like saying to William, get out, so and so is looking for you at your house. And because William he's intimidated by Shamil, he's also intimidated by the person he said was waiting at his flat, so he had no choice but to go. Like he was like, I just
scared.
He was scared as well. Yeah, I remember the fear like that he had, as well as the fear that I had. You know, so I don't see why a boy who is the same age as me should be expected, especially somebody who's vulnerable and has mental health issues, should be expected to be any more responsible for me than I am. Even though, you know, maybe we could have fought him off, you know, in hindsight. When I look back,
when you're dealing with someone as dangerous as what you're saying,
yeah,
you know,
he was a very, very scary individual. And when he came into my flat, he circled me, which is really weird, you know. So he acted, really intimidating, and he was like looking me up and down, and then he was saying like really, and this is a stranger to me apart from I know his name.
You've never met him before, no?
No. So this is my introduction to Shamil, who's a dangerous criminal. That's all I know about him. And he was big as well. So he was bigger than me, and he'd been working out in prison. And people have been talking about that as well. Like he'd worked out in prison and he'd got some muscle. And so he was like this big, stocky guy, circling me, saying things like, I want you to be my girlfriend. I'm going to buy you a house, and I'm going to...
He's thinking that's what you want to hear,
yeah. But maybe I was, you know, I wasn't that naive, because I was 18. You know, so there were some advantages to being older, because they target much younger girls usually than me, and there was definitely some advantages that I had over a younger girl in that situation. But I wasn't so I never. I don't blame anybody for having one of these men as their boyfriend, but I never thought of any of them as my boyfriend. And I would never have believed that. I didn't want to go out with him anyway, because I was an A-level student and he was a dangerous criminal that I just met. So that's not how I, it's not how I go out with someone, you know, like, I'm not saying that I'd write off a criminal, but it's somebody who had committed a crime, I should say, instead of being like derogatory about it. But I'd want to go on a date with them. I'd want to, you know,
get to know them properly.
Get to know them. I'd want to meet them in a suitable location for meeting people. Like, I don't know, but probably in my head I was thinking a library.
Or going for food and stuff like that.
Or going for food, going to the cinema and stuff like that. You expect to be like a little bit wooed and dated. not like just met you, gonna say, do you want to be my
Situation
girlfriend?
wasn't obviously.
Yeah, and then him saying he's gonna, because I knew he couldn't buy me a car. I just got out of prison. I wasn't an idiot. You know, I can't buy myself a car, so you definitely can't buy me a car. And you're not gonna buy me a house. Like,
They're just trying to tell you the things that you want to, like, that you.
yeah, but odd things. So I found it scary. It was really, really scary because those things aren't real. What everything he's saying isn't real, and he's circling me, and he was putting his arms around me, and he was trying to like hug me, and then while he was trying to hug me, he was also trying to kiss me, and I was trying to like get my face away from his, and I was trying to push him away from me, but as I was pushing him, he would like strengthen his grip around me, which was also scary AF. Yeah. So I was trying to, every time I tried to pull away, he would like strengthen his grip on me. Yeah. So there was like, I don't think there was no escape. Basically, there's no escaping that. And then he wanted to. Oh, it's horrible, really. So he wanted to strip me naked. And I didn't want to undress, so he just did it, and I was saying, no, I don't want you to undress me, but I wasn't like trying to force him off me because I was too scared of all that like intimidation of him hurting me if I did. So even though I was like verbally protesting, I just stood there as he was like undressing me and stuff, while I was like verbally saying, I don't want you to do this. And then it was getting to the point.
Okay.
Yeah, well, I was getting to the point where I was desperate because I knew I was going to get raped. So I was saying to him, like, just don't, like, okay, so you're undressing me, but just don't take my underwear off. And then in my like stupid naive mind, I was thinking, if I don't take my underwear off, then he can't get to me. But then he lay me down on the bed, and then he left my underwear on like I'd asked, but he just moved out of the way, and then he started to rape me anyway. And then I just had to wait for him to finish. And then after he finished, he wanted me to look at him, and because I wasn't making eye contact anymore, and he wanted to ask me if I thought he'd got a big penis, and it was just a really uncomfortable.
He was a horrible individual.
Yeah, it was. I thought the whole thing was weird because he just raped me, and now he's asking me, like, if I find him attractive.
After what he's just done.
Yeah, and I said I didn't want to do that, and he said, "Are you saying I raped you?" And so I didn't say anything. I just didn't respond because I'm still terrified.
He knew it was wrong.
Yeah, of course he knew he knew he'd raped me. He knew that I didn't want to do it. Like, he probably could tell, you know, he could tell, like, you know, he knew anyway. So I don't need to.
You okay?
I don't need to. Yeah, I'm okay. So he was a horrible, horrible person, and he wouldn't leave me alone either after that. So I spent so I was still terrified of him afterwards, and he wouldn't let me, he wouldn't go, he wouldn't leave. So I just had to, he made me follow him around to see William. And then he told William in front of me that he just made me give him a BJ, which didn't happen at all. That was really weird, and I wanted to protest, but I was too scared, so I just didn't say anything. And then eventually he decided he was going to leave, and so he pinned me up against the wall, forced me to kiss him, or kiss me, and I didn't kiss him back. And then he left, and then finally I was on my own. And yeah, and then William was having a go at me because I'd given him a BJ, which wasn't true. That didn't even happen. And I just let William have a go at me without me saying anything. I was probably sulking a bit. And I waited for him to leave. And then I called my friend, and I called my friend on the phone, and I told her, well, first her mom answered, and I said, "Can I speak to my friend?"
Yeah.
And then I just burst into tears, and I cried and I cried on the phone to her. And I couldn't even breathe to tell her what was wrong.
You're right. You okay?
Yeah, and she started crying as well. She didn't know what was wrong, but she could hear how upset I was. And then I just said to her, I've been raped. And then she carried on crying.
Sure you're all right?
Yeah, I'm okay for a moment. If I just let myself breathe. Yeah, so, and that was the first time that I got raped in the YMCA. And it was a Sunday, and the next week I'd got 6 exams for my A levels. Yeah. So it couldn't have come at a worse time. Like, if I gave them any credit for their intelligence, which I don't, I think it was coincidence, I would have said they'd done it on purpose to, like, ruin my life, like, as hard as they possibly could ruin my life. But I don't think they had any clue that I would have had A levels the next day. It was just coincidence.
It's just, to be honest, Kate, nobody deserves that, no matter what.
Yeah.
I don't,
Thank you.
you're sitting your exams and stuff like that, and you're worrying about your exams.
Yeah.
You should be worrying about yourself and what's just happened to you.
Yeah.
And this sounds like a bit of a silly question, but after speaking out to your friend or a mum or whatever, did the police saw anything, or was you just in fear? Was you scared? Was it?
I reported it to the police in the end. Well, and when I say in the end, it's not like I waited months or anything. I took a couple of days to make the decision, but after about 3 days, and my counsellor at college had convinced me to report it to the police, so I reported it to the police.
So you told a couple of people. You spoke out straight away, yeah.
Yeah. So I had told the staff in the YMCA, and I had told a counsellor at college, and she supported me to report it over the phone with the police. She was there at the time, and she said I'd got something to report, and then I reported it over the phone with her. And that, I mean, even that's something that she's going to remember forever, that moment. I don't know what, because sometimes I think about the professionals now that helped me and the ones that didn't, and how they're living their lives now, and what might be going on. And there's a lot of people that I would have liked to have said thank you to that I'll never see again, so I would have said thank you to her for supporting me to do that. But then I went to the police, so they couldn't get me in straight away. First they wanted to come to my house, and I was like, so I was like, I can't have uniformed police come to my house, because I lived on the same street as Shamil and the rest of his family. So, like, I couldn't risk them seeing that police officers were coming to my house after that. So they agreed to let me go to them, but then I had to wait till the Saturday. So I've been raped on the Sunday, and then I saw them face the police face to face on the Saturday. So, it all happened within a week. Yeah. From the actual it happening.
Attack, yeah.
Yeah. And at the time, the only support was like crisis, and I didn't warm to the it didn't make me want to call crisis. I didn't.
You wanted to speak to someone.
Yeah, I never called crisis. I don't know. I just maybe it's just when you've been raped and you've got that horrible, like, shock feeling. Like, there were things that just felt like you didn't fancy doing. I don't know. Yeah. So I never actually called crisis, but that was the only other option for, like, counselling or support.
Yeah.
Anyway, so I went to the police station to give my statement, and I wanted to report it as like intelligence, but I don't think police aren't very intelligent.
Was that what they were advising? Was it?
It was what my counsellor had convinced me to that's how she'd convinced me to tell the police, so that I don't have to, because I was really, really scared that if I reported it, yeah, then him or his family members, I'm talking other gangsters in the gang, would know that I'd reported it, and I wouldn't be safe in that YMCA anymore. And it didn't occur to me, because I was so young and naive and didn't know anything, that somebody could have moved me out for my safety, or nobody suggested
That's
it.
what you generally would think, you know,
Yeah,
to take you away from that place
no
where...
one suggested it, so I literally just assumed that they would arrest him and leave me there. So I'd just be a sitting duck waiting for these family members to come and get me, because
you told
yeah,
what the despicable act, what he'd done.
yeah. But even the way I'm saying, oh, they're going to come and get me, makes me realise like how naive I was about this dangerous criminal gang, because it's a bit more than the baddies coming to get you.
There's many things in life, Kate, but that SA abuse and stuff like that,
Yeah,
that's not acceptable. It doesn't matter who it is.
Oh, I just remembered I wasn't supposed to say the R word all the way through.
Don't
I just
worry,
totally said it like a million times.
Don't worry. But you know what? No one deserves that.
Yeah.
Whether you're 18, you're vulnerable. Whether you're 8 years of age or what, no one asks to be SA'd or graped or whatever you want to say.
Yeah.
Just say it, and I'll blur it out.
Yeah, blur it out. Yeah. Okay, cool. Yeah. Beep it out. Beep.
Yeah. But from there, you know, you're worrying and you're scared, you're petrified, and you know, and this is what I'm going to say, Kate. What I get from what you know, you're such a person who is always looking out for other people. When this has happened to you, and you're like concerned about, I wonder how them people are doing, you know, and I've only met you in the last hour or so, and I know your backstory, and I'm sitting here with you, and that I've got tears in my eyes, and I just think as a person how brave and courageous you are. Some people who are SA'd, raped and whatever, they never tell anybody. You went and told someone in a matter of days, and it's a week later that you're being, you know, it should be done there and then.
Yeah.
You know, and you know, you're scared, you're petrified. No one deserves to have that done to them. Nobody. You know, and from there, was it like you know, you told the police, you know, and what was the police's outcome of that?
So I've talked about this. So I've talked about it so many times, but it's probably not. And I also, you know, feel a bit, talking about these other professionals and stuff like that I've met, like I feel a bit sorry for this police officer as well, because if she watches any of my story and she hears this part of it over and over again, then it could be really upsetting for her to continue to listen to her mistakes. And I also don't think it was all her fault either, but the police, they don't have intelligence, not exactly. If you go and tell them that a crime has been committed, that this is what they told me.
It up, don't they?
They have to act. So they would have to go and arrest him. So that's what they told me. They said if I report it as rape, then they would have to arrest him, and then I would felt that I was going to be at risk. So
what did they advise you to do?
So they said you can either do that, or you can report it as consensual, and that you just didn't want to do it, and you felt coerced or pushed into it.
Well, isn't that...
And then we won't have to go and arrest him because a crime hasn't been committed. So they wrote me out a statement. So I'll just, in that officer's defence, she didn't make that decision herself. She went and spoke to somebody above her, and that was their advice that she had to give to me. So really, she was just the messenger of that, and the decision was made higher up, that was the most appropriate thing to do. So they write the statement, and this is very normal as well. So the police write the statement for you because they try and make sure that it's what you've said. But obviously this was completely made up, so it wasn't a reflection of what I'd said to them. But they help you write the statement so that it reads easy for court, basically. So, and they basically saying what you said. So they write the statement for me, and then I just have to sign it. So I thought I'll just leave them to write the statement. I'll sign the statement, and then, you know, and then it's done then, and then I don't have to worry about it. They're not going to arrest him, and I'm safe then. But, you know, I was too young to realise that, you know, when somebody's at risk of doing something, when somebody's done something before, they're at risk of doing it again, you know, especially with criminal behaviour. And I feel like the police know this. So I feel like they should be putting 2 and 2 together when somebody's reporting a crime, that there's a high chance that that perpetrator is going to do it again, whether it was going to be to the same victim or whether that's going to be to someone else.
You've got to stop that pair. Yeah.
Yeah. So if men are going to if a man has raped somebody and they don't get punished for it, then they can continue to do that over and over with other women, other girls. You know, they think they can get away with it.
I think they're untouchable.
Yeah, and the inaction was so. I mean, I don't know how you can. As inaction can be, it's as bad as it is, isn't it? It's just in the sentence. So it was so bad that they weren't responding at all to this, that there were loads of rapists walking around the street, going unpunished, and it was actually this underground lawlessness because of the inaction of
there was no action being done. They weren't being like full on with it and trying to arrest them, or, you know, I know people, but it might have been in fear. But after that, Kate, was there a few days later?
Yeah, so I just kept getting raped after that. So Shamil's family members, so his cousin came round 2 days later and he raped me. I did know him because he was one of William's friends.
Did he force his way in, or it was just...
He knocked on the door, and I was still in shock from...
after what's happened?
Yeah, from being raped by Shamil. And he... So he knocked on the door, and he'd brought a friend with him as well. And then there would be this and I say would be because it happened on many occasions after this, a very polite verbal argument at the door where I was really intimidated. And I was trying to say that I didn't want to let them in, but they wouldn't take no for an answer. And they often belittled me and made me feel like I was worthless and like, why wouldn't you let us in, kind of thing. Sometimes in their language there would be a way of like tricking me into saying that I was on my own, because they'd act like they were being suspicious, and they'd be like, who's in your flat then? And I would be like, no one. Like, why are you asking me who's in the flat? But that was a trick for me to say there's no one in the flat.
So they know that
So they know that they've got easy, you know, they know that they can...
There's no one else there.
Attack me, yeah, basically, yeah. So I mean, you can call them mistakes now in hindsight because you can see the danger that I was in, but I was learning like on the spot how to deal with these dangerous sex offenders, you know. So I don't blame myself, but there were several things that made me fall victim to them, like answering the door in the first place, and people blamed me for that. So people blamed me for opening the door. People then blamed me for letting them in, and I blamed myself because, you know, after I'd been raped, I'd be thinking to myself, why did I let them in? What, like, I'm so stupid, I'm an idiot, like, why is this happening to me? What have I, you know, why do I keep doing this? Is like the thoughts that I was thinking. And so, and then other people were backing me up with like, why did you let them in? And, you know, so it was just solidifying that horrible guilt that you have instantly of, as a trauma survivor, and to stop myself from getting raped. This is ridiculous. I tried to put things in place to stop myself answering the door. So I would like literally lock myself in, deadlock the door. There was like more than one lock. I would lock the door, I could turn my doorbell off, so my doorbell just stayed off all the time so that I could pretend I was out, and so it wouldn't be doing my head in while they were, they could knock for as long as they like, and it wouldn't be that horrible buzzy noise. It would just be them knocking, and I left all the lights on all the time so that it looked like I left my lights on even when I was out. That was my trick. Rather than have the lights off all the time, so it looks like I was out all the time.
Your day-to-day life.
Yeah, I started crawling around on the floor so they couldn't see me, so they wouldn't be able to see me through my windows. So and that's how I was living my life, like like I was mad. I remember boiling the kettle, like sitting underneath the kettle while I was like pressing it up here, boiling it, and thinking
That's the extremes that you have to go to.
Yeah, it's probably not a very good idea to boil water to be in this position while you're boiling water in case it falls on you.
This is what you've been pushed to because of what these fucking animals have done.
And it's as if this is what other people around me at the time were expecting me to do to avoid, being
That's just
abused.
like you're saying, you're trying to avoid, and after the first incident, and then I know there's numerous other incidents which, we don't need to do. I don't want to watch name, Kate, because...
Well, just, it started happening weekly. It started happening more than weekly. It was like 2 or 3 times a week. There's no like set time, so I can't say that it was like, it wasn't every single day, but sometimes it was like way more than one man in a day. So lots of men would come. There were lots of men that would come who were
all part of this gang.
Yeah, well, I didn't know where they all came from. So some of them were Asian and some of them weren't. And they would knock on my door and try and come in, but I wouldn't let most of them. Some of them I could get rid of at the door. So I basically would say no to them, and they'd accept that, and they would leave me alone. And then others weren't. Others were not much more pushy. So I don't know where they came from, but I think they were like, I don't know if they were selling my address. So I don't know if money was exchanged before they came to me, or whether they were. I suppose it did. I don't know if they were charging people or not. But I know that strangers were coming to my door trying to get me to have sex with them. Yeah.
Was there any, you might think this is a bit insensitive, but did you think I'm going to get away? Or was you, because you were that young and vulnerable, you didn't know where to go, or you had nowhere to go?
Well, I didn't know how to move out because I'd been like supported by the staff in the YMCA to move into the YMCA. I was on housing benefit. I'd only got my part-time job, and my part-time, I think Primark were a bit evil to me as well, because they put me on an overtime ban because there was a day that I booked overtime that I couldn't do, so I had to cancel it. But I cancelled it about 4 or 5 days in advance, but they put me on an overtime ban for that, so I only could do my 4 hours.
After what's gone on as well, Kate, had you told anybody at work, or would you just...
I told a colleague, but I hadn't told my managers. I don't know what they would have done about it anyway. They're horrible. They were really horrible to me at Primark, and I'm going to out them for it. They can do what they like to me because they were very, very nasty people.
Just a number.
Not necessarily the manager.
Account, feel what's gone on.
I didn't have much to do with the manager himself, so I can't say, oh yeah, the manager was horrible, but the supervisors were evil. They were really horrible people. And I think that's how they thought they were supposed to be to do their job in Primark, and if anybody else in Primark works there that it still happens to, then maybe we need a new Primark scandal, like the McDonald's scandal, because I worked in McDonald's as well, and I was sexually harassed at McDonald's, but that's a bit later on.
Oh bloody! It's just considering what's gone on, for you to go through all that, Kate, I just can't. The police, was the police still not acting on
so I never reported anything else, because if the main incident wasn't rape in the eyes of the police, then I didn't know how to explain any of the other incidents. I still blame myself, so I was still thinking it was my fault because I'd answered the door, and so I needed to crawl around on the door on the floor to avoid being avoid accidentally having sex because it wasn't the R word, according to them. So I got out in the end by, I wanted to go back to college. So I had all these young, immature ideas about how to escape.
You were still going to college as well after all this is going on?
I was on my, summer holidays, and it was just before I got my A-level results. So I was waiting for my A-level results. So the A-level results came in like August time, and I did way better than I thought I was going to do, because I thought after I'd been raped by Shamil the weekend before my exams, I thought I was going to fail them all. So I thought my life was over. But actually I did all right. And so I had a conversation with college, because what I was thinking in my head is, if I go back for another year, at least I'll be to college, at least I'll be out of the house for like most of the day, so I'll be able to avoid them. And then college were like, oh, you've got decent A levels, so we're not going to fund you to come back for another year. And they were a bit like, they're a bit rude, but at the same time they did me a favour, because they put me with the student advisor. And, you know, I wish I could say thank you to her as well, because the student advisor was lovely, and she could see I was vulnerable. I'd actually got bruises on me from a fight that I'd been in. And she was like, oh, you know, I really want to help you. So she said, do you want to go to university this year or next year? And I was like, this year? What the hell do you mean? Because it was September at this time. So it was the beginning of September. So I was like, double taking at myself. And I was like, did you just say this year? And she was like, yeah, you can apply through clearing. So that's what I ended up doing. The student advisor helped me get into university, basically. She said, do you want to go this year or next year? And when she said this year, I was like jumping at the chance then. I was like, yeah, I'll go this year. So she had a look at some courses for me. She had a look at some universities. I said I wanted to do psychology or mental health nursing. There wasn't as much psychology courses through clearing, so we looked at mental health nursing, because there was loads of universities recruiting still for mental health nursing. And so she got me into an interview for a couple of universities, but one of them was Anglia Ruskin, and I always think this is quite funny, because it was A to Z list, so it was like alphabetical order. So I just pretty much, apart from Aberdeen, it was the next one down. So I decided that, well, sometimes I think, oh, you know, maybe I should have gone to Aberdeen, but I was like, but I was thinking it was too far away, because it's probably about 500 miles or something like that. But Anglia Ruskin in Essex was 200 miles, and I thought, oh, that's good, because they definitely are not going to come 200 miles to get me. I thought if I go to Birmingham, they're going to they'll come and get me in Birmingham, because it's not that far. If I go to Wolverhampton University, it's even closer, so they'll definitely be able to find me if I move to Wolverhampton. So I was like, 200 miles, that's good. I'm not worth 200 miles of their time, is what I was thinking in my head. They're not going to come down, and they'll feel out of place if they try and come down to Chelmsford in Essex to like wander around and
people get suspicious
hopefully
and stuff,
find me. Yeah, that's not going to happen. They're not going to go do a 400 mile round trip to try and find me. I'm not worth that. I'm definitely not worth that. So I thought, yes, that's my escape, and that's how I'm going to get out. And so she got me in anyway. She was great. She even got the college to pay for. Sorry to go on about her. She's amazing though.
No, of course not.
She got the college to give me a like £90 loan to get the train down there. Yeah, and stay over in a hotel so that I could do the interview for the course. And then on the train back home, they told me that I'd got a place.
You accepted?
Yeah, that I was accepted, and and it was amazing. And I thought, I'm going to tell my mom this, because my mom will definitely support me to go to university, so she will be happy to pay for a deposit for the accommodation. And that was only £200 at the time, so that wasn't actually that bad. So my mom paid the £200 for the accommodation, and between like the 4th of September when I spoke to the advisor, and the 26th of September I started, and 26th of September 2007 I started my course, and it was just like
That was.
it was very. But I was being abused all the way up until the day that I left.
It was just.
Yeah, I had a kidney infection, and I was really, really ill, and that was from a time I was raped by somebody, and it was actually. I was trying to say it in a nice way, like AR instead of VR, as opposed to VR. So he wanted to do AR, and then he wanted to VR me afterwards, and that caused a really, really nasty kidney infection. And I lost like a ton of weight. I was being sick all the time. I was on antibiotics, and I had to make the journey down to university whilst having a bowl in my hand to be sick into. And my mum drove me down, and I'd got a bowl to be sick. And then my mum had to.
Was your mum aware and stuff?
She didn't know what was going on, but she knew I was ill, but she didn't know why. And she said that she cried all the way back from dropping me off at uni, because it was really sad to leave me in that state, in a place I didn't know, in a new, all on my own.
Listen, she didn't know the full extent of.
Of course not. No, I mean, it would have been even worse if she did. Maybe she probably wouldn't have left me if she didn't know the state.
I don't think she will. But
yeah.
Obviously, life at uni down in Essex. Your mum's took you down there. You've just, what you've been through. Obviously, you haven't, it's explained anything to your mum in regards to what, what's been going on. But being down in Essex on your own, wanting to start anew after considering what's gone on, how was you feeling? Because I know you're probably PTSD and all that and stuff, and flashbacks and everything was kicking in. How was you feeling as a person, Kate?
Well, when I on my first day, I still had a raging kidney infection, and so I was so determined to attend my first day that I dosed myself up with cocodamol to hold down the fever. I took it with me. I took plenty of water, and I went to that first day. I thought it was really important to go to the first day, not to look good, but because I needed to know what was going on next. So if I didn't go to the first day, the introduction, then I wouldn't have known where my classes were, and I wouldn't have known how the uni worked. So I needed the introduction. It was really important. Otherwise I was going to be totally lost. But then I only made it halfway through the day, and I started getting the shakes. I got really dizzy. I was really unwell. I was really feverish. I needed my bed. But I did manage the main part of the day, and I got through it. So I think I remember that time really well, and I look back on it and I feel sad, but I also feel like it's an ode to my determination there, because I know what lengths I will go to for my future. So I felt like everything was going to be different. I was so grateful that I escaped. I was also in a state of like shock or amazement that I'd actually made it out of there.
You felt safe? Did you feel safe?
Well, I guess so. To begin with, I felt physically safe. I thought I was just in a state of I can't believe I'm out. I actually felt like, and I would say this because I'd got really desperate in the YMCA, and in my flat one day I broke down. There was many times, to be honest, that I broke down crying to myself. But I prayed to God, and I hadn't been brought up overly religious, but I prayed to God, and I'd sort of said to God, if you do exist, get me out of here. I don't think I'm going to make it to Christmas, and I was really, really worried that I had got this sense of impending doom, that either they were going to kill me or I was going to end up killing myself. So I really didn't imagine that from August to December I was going to make it back to be spending time with my family. So much has happened at Christmas time. And then magically, within probably a month of that moment where I was praying to God, I was at university. and I was in Essex, and I just thought, like, you know, that was kind of an answer to my prayer, and I was right. I wasn't going to make it to Christmas, but it wasn't because I was going to die or they were going to kill me. It was because I was going to get out. So I got out, and I was just... And looking back now and knowing what I know from a professional point of view, those were some of the first symptoms of PTSD, like very early trauma symptoms, you know, in a daze, in kind of still in this like extended shock that I first of all survived, and that the trauma had happened in the first place. And I started to feel really weird as the days and the weeks went on. I started to feel like I was an alien and everybody else was like, and I was different to everyone, and I, like, in a way that I didn't understand anybody anymore, so, and especially men. So I didn't feel like I could trust men anymore. So men were talking to me in general, like men on the course, you know, who were also on the course, men who were my, I don't know, shop assistants, or people walking past me, or there was some scaffolding going on. So there was like workmen at the university at the time, and then my tutors and things like that. So I was interacting with men, but I didn't know like what they wanted. So I was a bit like...
The trust thing was very much...
Yeah, but it was like extreme trust issues. It was like I couldn't even... It wasn't like, oh, I can't have a relationship with this guy. It was like every man that spoke to me, I was like, what does he want? What does he mean by, you know, I don't know, I was buying a chocolate bar. That's £1, please. What does he mean by that? Do you know what I mean? Like, I couldn't understand any of their communication. Like, a guy crossed the road and asked me for directions, and I was really freaked out by it because I thought he was trying to like flirt with me, and that his intention was sexual. So I thought all men's interaction with me was
because of what's gone on. Because of,
yeah,
you're gonna think that, okay, because the way you've been treated.
Yeah, exactly. So I was very hypervigilant. So that's another symptom of PTSD, and then the alien feeling, that was disassociation. So I had disassociation. I thought everybody was something else. I didn't understand anybody anymore. People were speaking a different language to what I thought I knew English, but not anymore. And I decided that either I was an alien, or I'm human, but I'm on another planet, and this isn't Earth anymore. Yeah. And then so either that. So I was coming up with theories about what it was. Either that, or I've somehow slipped into the wrong side of the mirror, and everything's the same as it was, but it's all backwards.
Yeah.
You know, because a mirror is a mirror image, isn't it? So I was like metaphorical about it, but I couldn't put a finger on what this feeling was. And so to me, that's what I was interpreting it as. And I didn't know. Yeah. So then I started having these very, I would say, very aggressive flashbacks that I wasn't conscious that I was having, and it would only happen while I was alone in my room, and I think in halls at university. And I think that's because that's when I felt most unsafe, because I was at home alone at in the YMCA when the guys would abuse me, like turn up at my door and things like that. So I think I felt most unsafe at home in my room on my own. So that's when these flashbacks were coming, and I didn't have anything to sort of snap me out of it. So I don't know, I would be like at my computer doing my university work, and then so I wouldn't consciously realise one train of thought had led to another that started reminding me of a particular event. Because you don't always know where your train of thought comes from. You don't even always know what your train of thought is. But then I'll be at my university, I'll be doing my uni work, and then all of a sudden 3 hours had passed and I'm crying, and I'd snap out of it and I'd be like, why am I crying? Like, the emotion had completely gone. So I wasn't even upset, but I was like, obviously a state, and I can't describe that in any other way. Like, it's such a random, strange feeling it's normal obviously for somebody who has PTSD or was having flashbacks, but it's not a normal experience for people. Normally, when you get upset, you know that you've got upset. So it was really bizarre for me to all of a sudden realise, with no emotion, feeling calm and fine, that I'm really upset and I can't even breathe through my nose because I'm all snotty and my eyes are all puffy and my face is wet and I'm like wet all over me because of crying. And that happened a couple of times, and I had no memory of what I was thinking about. So I didn't know that I'd had a flashback. I didn't know that's what I was thinking. It was completely no memory. And so, I was basically having blackouts. And then the way I figured out that it was a flashback was that one day, so it'd been happening for a while, a couple of weeks, maybe a couple of months, and it happened kind of like twice a week. So it was happening quite regularly. And then one day I started shouting Ali Sultan's name and I was repeating the words I had said at the time an incident was happening. And when that happened, it snapped me out of it because I realised I was talking. So and then I heard what I'd said and then I was like, why am I thinking about that? I didn't even realise that memory, that incident had traumatised me. So I didn't even know it was a traumatic incident. I didn't even know that I was scared at the time it happened. So then I was like, what the hell? Why am I thinking about Ali? Why am I thinking about this incident where I was an idiot and I ended up doing this thing that I didn't want to do, and this whole thing happened because at the time I had a very warped view of what was and what SA was, and I still blamed myself for those scenarios. Yeah, so I was like, why am I even thinking about that? Like, that's been and gone, that's done. Like, why is it even bothering me? Like, why am I shouting his name? Like, so all of that was like really random
still there,
to me.
though, and...
Yeah, it was, yeah, but I didn't know I was traumatised. So to me, that at the time, it was a really confusing time for me. I
fully didn't understand it.
Yeah, and I didn't know what PTSD was either, so I'd never heard of it before. I was at uni studying mental health nursing, but the first year was a foundation course where they were teaching us the basics of nursing. So I was learning all the human biology that I'd just done at A-level, because one thing about this course was actually I was overqualified for it because you didn't need A-levels, you only needed GCSEs to start this course, but I'd got 3 A-levels, so I'd done A-level human biology intending to go on to psychology, ended up on this course where they then taught us all the A-level human biology, which I'd already done. So I was doing a lot of repeated classes, but in a way it was good because I was, I'd done all this, so I'd just done all this as well. Yeah, I've just done an exam on all this stuff that you're teaching me now, back to basics. So I was happy to be doing it again because it was quite easy. So I did. Thankfully, I found the first year quite easy, and I think that I probably needed that because I was good. Because the first academically, I found it easy, not mentally.
Yeah.
So I was struggling with all these mental health issues, and luckily I could actually manage to complete my assignments and things like that. So things mentally started. I made some friends to begin with at Freshers Week and things like that, and then I gradually started losing them because sometimes they were on different courses to me and they started dropping out and things like that. They would have much longer breaks than we get in nursing. Nursing is very military, and I'm in some ways I'm quite proud of like the military structure that I had to follow and like the responsibility that I've had to learn and things like that of being a nurse. And we only got 8 weeks, I think, annual leave, and it was at set times. So we get 2 weeks for Christmas, we get 2 weeks for Easter, and then we had 4 weeks for summer. Whereas people on other courses had like 2 months, months off in between semesters, So I would lose friends because they'd have 2 months off at home, and I wouldn't hear from them for ages, and I'd be a bit abandoned. And then when they came back, it didn't come back. It didn't come back again. the friendship. And some people ended up dropping out because they'd spent all their student loan and run out of money, and it had not gone well for them. And, you know, so I had some friends to begin with, but then I sort of like started petering out and lost some of them. And because of the responsibilities I had on my course, it was really difficult to continue friendship relationships with anybody who wasn't also doing nursing. Also, I was paranoid all the time, you know, I was really paranoid about men. So some boys fancied me and things, and every time they did, I was like, oh my God, he fancies me, he's going to try and me, which is really what I was feeling, but not what I was thinking. So I didn't know that I was afraid of being raped. I just thought I was just afraid of men,
You were scared.
sexually, men doing anything sexual with me, not understanding their intentions, ending up walking into a trap kind of thing. So the first year was a bit rocky, up and down. First, really bad symptoms of PTSD, and then what happened was, because of that horrible alien feeling for a start, because I'd got no friends, because of the way that I felt about myself, I didn't understand this myself, so it's really difficult for other people to understand. But, you know, sometimes I think, well, yeah, you and me both, bruv, like, I don't understand it either, like, and I'm the one living my life in my body, so it's like way worse for me. Like, imagine me. I started going back to a gang in Birmingham, and I think, so in many ways, I hated myself. I thought I deserved it. I didn't have any friends. These were my only friends. I felt worthless. So I accepted these people as my friends because I didn't want to be lonely, and I didn't have anybody else to talk to. And that was the only thing I'd got to do with my time. And so on top of all of that, I don't think that explains it. I think that I was physically reliving the trauma, because I was like, if my symptoms of PTSD were that bad that I was having blackouts, then I think the reliving aspect of that trauma subconsciously was going round and round in my head all the time. And I think the only way to not have those horrible flashbacks I was having was to physically relive it. So I think my mind was actually addicted to going back without me being consciously aware of it. I think that being back in the situation like made me feel my mind feel the most contented, because it was, and the only way I can compare this, if I can compare it for other people to understand, are people who've been in the army, who have been through really, really bad traumatic experiences. Some of them deal with it differently. They don't necessarily have a diagnosis of PTSD, so they continue on in the army for like 28 years, and they're able to withstand all these very, very traumatic experiences, and they just keep going back to more army experience. We get the veterans that have been like die-hard veterans that have been like, I don't know, 60 years, I don't know how long you spend in the army. Yeah. But yeah, I've met people who've been 28 years in the army. And how do you do that? And
that's their way of coping.
Yeah, constantly. Yeah, that's what I think.
And is that what this is what you're saying, is that your way of coping
with PTSD symptoms
was going back?
Yeah. I think it's really sad, really, really sad. But
as was you just, that's how you, was that how you were dealing with it? And is that
it wasn't not good for my mental health at all. It was really depressing. It was really affected my self-worth, and I just continuously felt worthless. I had really bad thoughts about myself that I think go beyond what is normal thought processes about someone, about thinking about yourself. So I think it was, we talk. So anyway, these are my theories, right? These aren't necessarily, these are my own lived experience theories, and I just need to make a difference between that and my professional explanation, okay, and what I've learned, because I've never heard anybody else say delusions of inferiority. Okay, so we talk about delusions of grandiose all the time in people who have bipolar. Sometimes they think they're Jesus and they're having a psychotic episode and they think they're exalted and they think they're better than other human beings, or they're special in some way. But nobody has ever considered that if you feel that you're less than human, then that is a delusional thought. So I think my thoughts on how inferior I felt were beyond what you would expect normal thought process to be about yourself. So I didn't feel like I was human. I've had that alien feeling all the time. I thought I'd got a demon in me that was making me do bad things. And I very actively hated myself. So I was quite aggressively bad to myself, and sometimes I wouldn't even call it putting myself in the situation. I just was in the situation and things would happen. I didn't know when I was going to get raped again or whether I was going to end. I didn't know a traumatic incident was going to happen, but I was in I was placing myself in a very, very vulnerable situation where traumatic things might happen, and I didn't care. And I didn't care at all. And I could have walked out, as I'm saying to say, but I could have walked.
Right.
Yeah. I could have walked out into the street and been run over, and I wouldn't have cared. So it didn't matter to me what I did to myself, or what anybody else did to me. So lots of bad things happened. Lots of really bad things happened, and some bad things happened where I couldn't say by law that was rape because of the situation that I had consented to or placed myself in, or the person that I'd gone with. And there were times where I thought, God, if I change, it's a good job I'm into this, because if I change my mind, I don't think I would get out. I'm not going to think like that. So I put that thought back into my to the back of my mind and just did what I had gone to attend to do, if you know what I mean. So I thought, I'm not getting out of this one, so I might as well not even consider about whether I'm consenting to it or not. So,
Was that your thought process, Kate? Was that how you...
Yeah, I was so, honestly, I don't think it, and I think this is the reason that it's so difficult for people to understand. I suspect that these were psychotic thoughts. These were delusional thoughts. These were not like abnormal. They were not thought disordered, but definitely not, not how you should be thinking, basically. No. Just, yeah. And the reason it's people are trying to understand it as if I was of sound mind, which 100% was not.
What you've endured, I can't get, just once, I'm sorry. But the amount of times that this has happened to you, and, when you're feeling what you're explaining to us, you didn't feel normal, you felt alien-like, you felt not wanted, you not felt... And let's be honest, you've been on your own from how young, and it's all that you've known, and it's like it's been acceptable, but obviously it's not. You've got away, you try to better your life.
Yeah.
And then, you're lonely, you're scared, you're traumatised, you're suffering with PTSD, you're suffering with blackouts, flashbacks. You just explaining that, me sitting here, I've got tears in my eyes, and I feel your pain, because some people go, oh, why did you go back? They don't understand as you as an individual, as a person. These thoughts, this demon inside you just thought that was normal to go back to that. I'm just so sorry that it happened to you, you know what I mean? And, I just can't get my head around how some people think it's acceptable to do what they do, in these disgusting ways, you know what I mean? I know people, consensual and stuff like that, but what you're describing and what you've said to us, and that's not consensual to me. That's rape, you know, and it's not acceptable. I'm sorry, but it's not, you know. And as a person, you know, it just, you know, trying to, and I don't know how you to try and speak to someone or whatever, because you've been let down in the past, and you're thinking, am I going to be let down again? And that's what I think. That's my genuine, you know, my thoughts. I probably might be wrong or might be right. I don't know.
I thought that it was a very much me problem. So
You're blaming yourself all the time.
I was blaming myself, but I also thought I'm the one that needs to figure out how to get out of this. So I was having some those are the thoughts that helped me escape ultimately.
But when you escaped and then you went back,
No,
you know,
I don't mean that
Yeah,
escape.
yeah.
I mean escape to that mental state that I'm talking
right,
about
okay.
now. Yeah. And that was that I've got a problem. It was accepting that I've got some kind of problem, and that was that I keep going back, and I don't know why I keep going back. I need to stop going back to get better, but I don't know how I'm going to do that. And I didn't talk to anyone, and I didn't explain to anyone because I didn't think they would understand. And from like the public's reaction to
what you're saying,
two interviews that I've done, you know, shows that I was probably right, that people wouldn't understand. So most people wouldn't understand. Mental health services wouldn't understand, because I was working in mental health services as a student, and I didn't understand. And I knew that my peers wouldn't understand. I knew that my mentors wouldn't understand, because I can see how they're talking about other patients. So I had to figure out how to get out of this mental state on my own. And ultimately, I managed to do that. And it was all those these thoughts of, oh, how do I get out of this? I need to get out of this. I can't keep living like this. They're actually thoughts of hope. So I didn't know, like, that they were thoughts that were instilling hope. They were positive thoughts of like, I need to get out of this, but also actually it means that I'm looking for a way out of it. So like I can almost like, even if I couldn't would consciously see a way out, I was actually aiming for a way out. So I was like stabbing in the dark somewhere, and eventually I was going to reach like an opening.
Yeah. You know, even, you know, when you've gone back and stuff, Kate, and I find this, you know, it just seems relentless. It was just, you know, I might be fast forwarding a bit, but being like, you were to Morocco, was that right?
Yeah.
How
So
did what's the with that?
yeah, so that happened with the Birmingham gang. So
From Telford to Birmingham, you know, but do you think they were all connected? And
so they were distantly connected. I think they were connected by one individual from each side, because I never saw another member of the Telford gang when I was spending any time in Birmingham, and I never heard of them again. But Telford gang did connect me with them in the first place, but I think it was through one person to one person. And that happened in the Cat D prison, because they were both in prison together. Yeah, and one of them came out on day release, raped me while he was on day release, went back, took my number and things like that, and then gave my number to somebody else, and that's how the connection ended up being made. So the men used to call me from prison on their mobile phone that they shouldn't have had in prison, you know, and I spoke to quite a few a number of men who I never actually ended up meeting, thankfully, in the prison, because my number would get passed around and they'd just call.
Was you just petrified when the phone would ring, or would you not answer it, or would you be threatened or whatever to answer? You know, if
it generally
people on the outside,
became quite normal life for me to get phone calls from men that I didn't know. So I'd
did
either
you ever think, I'm not going to answer it, or but
probably, yeah, there's probably loads of, I mean, I ended up getting another phone so that I could leave one off, but one that had a real number, so that when I gave them that number, they could call it and it looked like it was the real number. Because what they used to do, you can't really give a fake number, because they'll just call it in front of you, and then they'll know that it's fake, and then they'll push you to give you their number. So they had 2 mobile phones. So I was like, because they'd have a special mobile phone that they would talk to you on, that they would leave in their car so that their family didn't know that they were speaking to girls. So they'd have a different mobile phone for their girls. So I was like, well, if you've got the dis phone, because that's disrespectful to the girls, then I'm going to get a dis phone for you as well, because if I don't deserve any respect, neither do you. So in a way, I was like angry with them, and I knew they were perpetrators and I knew they were bad guys, but I would just be fighting them within the circle rather than leaving the circle. And so I would have a different mobile phone, so I could leave that at home, so that I could go to work, and I could go to my work placement at uni, and I wasn't getting like several calls a day off men trying to talk to me, or some of them couldn't speak any English, and I'd be like trying to. I mean, I don't even know why I bother trying to find out what they want, because obviously when I call them, and when they call me and I can't understand them, then that's a hint that it's one of them, So I'd get like calls from my family, I'd get calls related to university, or and I'd get calls from my friends at uni and things like that. And then on the other hand, I had this completely separate life, completely different life, where I was on the edge of being like a sex worker, and without making any money. And that's why now it's considered modern slavery, because not only was nobody else was making money out of me, I don't think, but I was basically a service girl, but I did not get paid for it. And when I had sex with these individuals, it was a service to them. It wasn't for me, it was a service to them. And so, eventually I have been recognised by the NRM by the Home Office as a survivor of modern slavery.
Modern day slavery.
Yeah. So I was, sorry, you asked me about Morocco. So I was just in with this group that were using me for sex or raping me. And I say, or because they were doing both, sometimes it was sex, and sometimes there'd be a guy that I didn't want to sleep with that I ended up having to sleep with, because the choice was very loose word.
There was no choice.
No, yeah. So really they should have, if they were responsible adults, then they would have seen that I was like mentally unwell. They could see that I was traumatized and not wanted to have sex with me. Like, I don't think it's normal to be attracted to somebody that unwell.
It's not acceptable, full stop. It's
Yeah.
it's disgusting. It's like...
And they were also at least 10 years older than me, so sometimes 15 years older than me. Yeah. And sometimes older than that.
Grown men, just like thinking it's acceptable to to treat you the way, like...
Yeah. Well, now that I'm 36, I would not be having sex with a 19-year-old boy or a man. I would just feel like...
It's not right.
I'd feel too impressionable. I don't know. I just feel a responsibility to them.
But they've got no morals, they've got no respect, they've got no values in life. I'm sorry, but what they're doing is just not acceptable. And I think in any walk of life, to treat people, and with you learn that from a child, morals, respect, and I'm sorry, but that's just I'm gonna say this: the pieces of shit.
Yeah. So they took me to Morocco. I mean, we just got on a plane. Nobody questioned it.
Did you realise what was going to go on?
Five of them. No, I think I was with 4 or 5 men. They were all Pakistani, and we went to Morocco. I didn't know what was going on. It was supposed to be a bit of it was sold to me as like a free holiday. I'm not that naive, but at the same time, I did not care about my life. So, you know, if I died on the plane or if I died in Morocco, I didn't care. So I was very, very reckless with myself, and I just didn't. And it's not that I was trusting people naively thinking they were safe. I just didn't care whether they were safe or not, or, you know, what was going to happen. I would just go anyway. I just didn't have it in my. I was missing some emotions that really, like self-preservation emotions that most people have. It definitely was not there for me. So I got on the plane. We went to, and then we were there for about 3 days. They made me have sex with this guy. So one of the Moroccans. I was supposed to have sex with the other Moroccan as well, but the two Moroccan guys were competing against each other, and they over me. So one of them wanted to keep, the one who was sleeping with me wanted to keep me. So he gave me the heads up that this guy is going to come to my room tonight. So lock the door. So I locked the door, but I wasn't trying to be loyal to this guy. I just didn't want to have sex with anyone else. You know, I didn't really want to have sex with this guy. But now that it's happening already, then I'd rather it only happen with one person. Yeah, so it was really horrible. I mean, the guy was banging on the door, like really, really trying to get in, and he was really angry with me for not opening the door, but I was just literally pretending to be asleep. I just thought, if I don't move and I don't respond, then he thinks I'm asleep. And that's the kind of thing that I would do when I was in the YMCA as well. It was like I would just literally not make any sound so that it sounded like I wasn't in.
It's
So
bringing it
I'll
all
do
back
that.
again. It's the same situation.
Yeah,
like,
well,
just,
they're coping strategies that you learn in that environment. So, and that's part of like what makes PTSD really difficult when you come out of it, is because now when you're in a safe environment, and you're constantly in a safe environment now instead of constantly being in this dangerous environment, you've learned a load of coping skills that you don't need anymore and that don't work in that situation. So you have to like relearn life, and I called it like rehab. It was like my active rehab, and there was no one that could like hold my hand and give me rehab, like slavery rehab, basically, because I'd been like living this modern slavery life where I was a slave. And then now I'm trying to like reintegrate myself into being a normal human being, and let go of all these slavery skills that I've learned. So it can be really tough. Things like work, employment, just having a boss who managers might also talk about what they want to do with you. You know, they might have talk to the supervisor and be like, okay, we're going to put Kate on this shift, and then we're going to put, just organising the rota, and that really did not sit okay with me. It made me really worried. I wanted to know what they were saying. I wanted to know, because I wanted to know what they were going to do with me.
questioning everything.
Yeah, and I was thinking, whatever they want to do with me is going to be negative to me in some way, because when I was with when I was in Birmingham with the guys, they'd be talking about what they wanted to do with me as a sex worker or slave, and in front of me in another language, and I wouldn't know what they were saying, and then work and employment replicated that scenario for me.
Trying to justify it, sort of thing, was the, or is it just?
Oh no, they were just making a decision. I was a commodity, and they were deciding who was going to have me first, and or whether they were going to take me to this house, or whether they were going to call their mates and say, "Do you want to come around? We've got this girl." So they were making all sorts of plans, a bit like that, without me ever knowing what they were saying, because it was in it, right in front of me, they'd be talking about me. So
Do you know, obviously, converting to Islam, is that, it saved your life, I believe, is that right?
Yeah, so the next year came round, so going to sort of 2008 now, September came along, and it was Ramadan. And Ramadan the year before, so anyway, I just added like some kind of meaning to it. But in 2007, when I escaped, it was Ramadan. So I got to university, and that all happened in Ramadan. And that kind of, I was like, okay, so next year, like just out of for a bit of a laugh or experience. I would just, because I was a mental health nurse and a student, and I like culture and I like experimenting and things like that. So I thought, oh, one thing they did. So, I've got to go back to the beginning. Sorry. At the beginning of Ramadan in 2007, was the day that I was raped by a man called Hakeem. It was the weekend before Ramadan started, because they have a big sex party the day before Ramadan starts. And this is like, obviously not everybody engages in this, but this is what some of the guys would do. So I was invited to this sex party. I didn't know that the significance of why that was going on. So I didn't know it was a sex party either, by the way. So I turned up and it was a sex party, and I was by this guy, and then I was by another one, and then you know. So anyway, that's just me quickly telling that story when I was in Telford. And then the next Ramadan, 2008, I was getting all these phone calls from my Birmingham gang saying, do you want to come to a party? And I was like, I think I'm savvy to this now. It's Ramadan this week, so you just want me to attend a Ramadan sex party again. And I don't know what they call it, pre-Ramadan sex party. I don't know if they ever name it, but you know, I'm naming it now. So I got calls from different groups of men, because where the Birmingham gang comes in is that it's a massive family, one massive family that is slightly connected to each other in some way. There's like 500 people or something. And I didn't know that many. I knew like less than 100. But they were in smaller snippets of gangs. So there'd be like five guys there or 5 guys there or whatever. So I was getting calls from different groups of men that I knew from Birmingham, and they were inviting me to different parties. So I was invited to like 3 parties or something like that, which I wouldn't have been able to attend them all anyway. But I was already preparing to fast for Ramadan, because I thought to myself, you're all going to abandon me for the month of Ramadan. They were saying to me, oh, I'm not going to see you for a month, da 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 da. So my only friends, and it sounds really bad, doesn't it, to end up with all my friends being abusers, but my only friends are going to abandon me for a whole month because they think I'm a sin. I'm worthless, I'm a sin, and I'm not worth like, I'm against their religion, so I'm actually like an abomination. And I thought, well, you know, the only way, that's horrible, and the only way to have one up on them and that was that, because I'm always competing for some reason. It's like how I passed my GCSEs, right? I would compare myself to somebody who was who I consider, who maybe was being mean to me or something, and I thought, right, I'm going to make sure I do better than you. So
was that your mentality?
Yeah, and that's how I got through my GCSEs, and I did well in my GCSEs.
But also as well, Kate, you're saying your friends, did you think they were your
well,
that's all you knew with them, you know?
Yeah.
Is that what you meant? That's what your mental thought was?
They were what I called friends now, because I did not have any real friends, and that's how I would have like worded it at the time. That this is my only version of a friend. So these are my friends, because I literally haven't got anything else. So I'm just going to take what I've got, and I'm just living in the life that I'm living, you know. And I accepted my role and my place within that friendship circle. Yeah, so I accepted myself basically as a slave, although I wasn't calling it that, you know. And they liked that, and they respected me for that, because I was quiet and I was good. So I was good, and I would say please and thank you, and they really respected that. And I think that's because the other girls they were abused. So they used to keep us separate, by the way, so I didn't really meet many other girls, but the other girls that they were used to abusing they'd get them drunk. They would so the girls would be drunk and disorderly because they had plied them with alcohol
and drugs as well.
Yeah, they were smoking, they were on drugs, so they they had like more emotion dysregulation, whereas I had it, but not in front of them. So I was very good. I was very quiet and subdued, and they liked that because that's what they expect out of a slave, basically, out of a slave woman, white girl. You know, that's what they want because it just makes it easier for them to abuse me. And I wasn't trying to be better than other girls on purpose. I was just like being my abused self. You know, I was just being me. And I forgot where I was going with this. So I'd accepted my role and my place. And anyway, I just wanted to have this one-upmanship on my friends who were all saying that I was, because it was like, it was just like friendship rivalry, really. It was almost like a bit of banter to me because like they treat me like shit. So I'm going to be like, well, you know, this is what I'm going to do. And I'm not coming to your party. So I cut them off for a whole month, and I bought a book about Islam, and because I bought the Quran first and I started trying to read the Quran. Well, I am dyslexic and I couldn't understand a bloody word it was saying, and it wasn't in Arabic, it was English, but I couldn't understand it. So I bought a book about Islam that taught me about Muslims and Islam, which made me realise that they had been withholding information about Islam to me on purpose because they want you to remain ignorant of the ways of the world in their eyes, because Islam obviously is not just a religion to them, it is life, it is real life. So if they deprive you of that and make you ignorant of what Islam is, then they can justify abusing you because you will continue to sin because you don't know the rules of Islam, and they can.
But by you looking at this, you can use that to fire back at or whatever.
Yeah, well, it did make me be able to have like it just gave me it was supplying me with information of instead of alcohol, of the way they view the world. Which was different to what I had ever experienced before, but it also was teaching me how to. I was looking at the Ramadan bit, because I, you know, really wanted to fast properly for Ramadan, and I didn't realise that Muslims cheat all the time when it comes to Ramadan, and it doesn't have to be. So some people are at different levels of religiosity, but everybody tends to fast in the family because it's like Christmas, you know, so at the end they'll have Christmas, and so they'll fast a little bit, you know, to join in, but to varying degrees. But I didn't realise that, so I just followed the rules to the T. So I had to be prepared. I had to buy all my food in advance, and I had to plan my meals because, you know, I had to think about what I was going to eat. And then I went between sunrise and sunset, and then I had to buy bottled water and things like that. So I made sure that I was drinking the right amount of water between darkness and light, because it was really important to make sure that you were hydrated when you're allowed to drink, because if you didn't, then you'd be literally dying of thirst during the day when you're supposed to fast. So the fasting process is no water and no food during daylight hours. So from sunset to sundown, nothing. And then at the end of the day, when the sun goes down, then you can have your meal, and then you pray in between that as well. So obviously I didn't manage to learn the Muslim prayer all that quickly so that I could start praying straight away from in Ramadan. But I just thought I'll do it for a week. I'll do the fasting for a week, and I'll just see like how it goes. And I thought, you know, God did help me escape from this gang in Ramadan, so maybe I'm maybe, you know, this is a way of like just me saying thank you to God, like, you did rescue me from that horrible Telford gang, so let me, you know, give you something back. And that's the way I thought about it. And then I followed like to the T how to fast. And during that first week, it just made me feel so much better. I think like I'd been living this really up and down life emotionally, emotions up and down. I'd been doing drugs with the gang, so obviously that was making my mood worse, and I didn't realise that. So during Ramadan, cut out all drugs and cut out smoking. I realised I was addicted to smoking and I didn't realise until I tried to quit in Ramadan, but I only started smoking in Morocco because they were just feeding me cigarette after cigarette after cigarette, and I wasn't really a smoker, but I was just smoking probably to cope with the situation. So after I got back from Morocco, I was like a full-blown smoker. So in Ramadan, I gave that up, and then I found that really challenging. I found that way more challenging than giving up coke and speed and everything. And
Is that what they were giving you? Were they giving you coke and speed?
yeah, coke, speed, pills, and then weed as well. So you kind of tend to miss out weed because it's such a minor in comparison to all the rest. But yeah, there was weed, and they always used to. So you know, talking about my place and my role, I only ever got the butt of the spliff because I was white, and white girls give BJs, so they don't want to share anything with you that's touched your lips after it's come round, but they'll share it with each other, but they won't share it with you. And they would never like share a glass with you or something like that, and they would make that very, very clear. And there was lots of like rules that white girls do this and they're only allowed to do this, and we're not going to share that with you, or we're not going to do that. And anyway, that's one of the things I remember. Traditionally, not all the time, but they share a bowl with each other, and they'll eat from one side of the bowl. Everybody's got like a side of the bowl that they'll eat, but they won't share a bowl with me. So I have to have a bowl to myself.
A separate bowl.
Yeah, which they would try and dress up that was them respecting me as a woman by giving me my own bowl, but actually it was because they thought I was dirty and would not share a bowl with me. So they thought I was stupid, but you know, I understood. I knew why they weren't doing it. So I fasted for a week. And it made me feel so much better because it was the first time that I was eating regular meals and I wasn't doing drugs and I was drinking plenty of water. So physically, this was the best I'd looked after my body in a long time. So instead of it being hard like it would be for most people who are fasting because they have to not nourish their body, I was nourishing my body better than I'd ever been nourishing it before. So and that kind of structure of routine as well, of like waking up at a certain time, just having that certain time during the day where you're not eating and drinking, and then having a meal at a certain time, was just really good for my mental health as well. So mentally and physically, I massively improved during that 1 week, and then I had such a good time, and I found it so exciting that how I was feeling that I carried on doing it for the whole 30 days. And eventually, you know, some of the guys would call me during darkness hours, and I would tell them I'm fasting, and they would say, "Oh, how many days have you fasted?" And I thought it was a really weird question because we were like on day 15 of fasting, and so I'd been fasting for 15 days. So I said 15 days, and then I thought, let me pass the question back, and I said, so how many days have you fasted? And they were like 6, and I was like, what? Some people don't fast every day. So I don't. So women don't have to fast during their period. So usually women get like a week off and they only have to fast for 3 weeks. But I didn't have a cycle within that period of time. So I actually fasted for the entire 4 weeks like a man. By the end of it, I was so I'd done so much research, and I was so impressed by Islam and actual rules and beliefs of Islam, which were so different from what they were presenting
to you,
that I decided to convert to Islam after that, and it saved me because it gave me the knowledge to be able to argue their point of view, so they couldn't keep telling me I was worthless and me believing I was worthless. Because
did it stop them from attacking you anymore? Or...
Oh, no. So they would have, but I could argue, so they would have if they could have tricked me into a room alone.
Believing what they were saying.
Yeah. So some of them were trying to say straight away, it's almost predictable. I'll marry you and I'll take you as like a second or third wife, and you know, then we can have a family together and we can be like a Muslim family. And I was like, I just decided I'd rather have somebody who wasn't, you know, I worded it that I'd rather be look for somebody who I can be a first wife of.
I don't want to be play second fiddle or whatever.
Yeah. But really, I didn't want to.
You didn't want to be in the first place.
I'd rather have a man that was not them.
No, it's caused. That's, you know, that the beliefs in and whatever. I'm sorry, but. You know, for me, that's...
Yeah, so that wasn't the only time that I'd been invited to be a second wife or, you know, the white girlfriend where, you know, they've got their Pakistani wife already and they've got a couple of kids and now they're going to have kids with me secretly and they won't even know their grandparents and, you know, that's supposed to be saving me from the abuse, right? So they were like, I'll take you in and I'll treat you like a princess and da-da-da-da-da.
There was none of that.
No. Well, that's what they would dress it up as. So that's what it was supposed to look like to me. But that's not. So originally, when I grew up, that's not how I envisioned my future. So I just didn't want to go down that route of like having children with a Pakistani who's taken me on as a second wife and will be a secret and I won't know I won't even meet his parents. And, you know, I'm not saying that, I'm not saying, and I don't want people to think this, that all Pakistani men are bad, because they're not. And I'm not trying to say that I wouldn't go with a Pakistani man full stop. I probably wouldn't just because of my abuse history, but I didn't want the second wife situation basically and the secret. I wanted my children to be worth something.
I'm sorry, but it's normal to have one wife. Do you know what I mean? Let's be honest. It's normal to have one wife.
Yeah, so I'm not trying to.
No, you don't even need to justify that as well. By the way, you know, because it's not. You really don't. But
no.
I just want to push on to when Operation Chalice.
Okay.
You know, obviously,
yeah,
so because
that's a natural progression anyway. So from converting to Islam, I met a really nice man as well. He was absolutely lovely. He was actually Syrian, and before the whole war and everything. And he's honestly one of the most loveliest men I have ever met in my life, and I mean that for across all races, because he was just such a wonderful person. And, you know, that it ended in the end, but it ended amicably, and I still think he's a great person. I was with him when I was a third year student, and I ended up on a placement, a work placement with a criminal injury, I always say that, the Criminal Justice Mental Health Service. And they had the opportunity to attend a MAPA meeting, and I went to this MAPA meeting as student nurse alongside a social worker who was also going. And MAPA stands for Multi-Agency Public Protection Association or something, and all the top policemen, I always say top policemen because I'm not sure what they're called, chief constables or something like that.
Chief constables and
stuff. Is it? Yeah, the chief and top guys from each police force from all over the county would get together and talk about the most high risk sex offenders or murderers, and where they were, and, you know, people on the sex offenders register who were just getting out of prison, and they were monitoring their movements and things like that. So they were talking about this guy who lived too near to a school. He'd moved in too near to a school, and they were going to need to do something about that. And then they were talking about this other guy who had raped somebody, and to begin with, the woman was too scared to report it to the police, so she didn't report it, and he came back and he raped her again. Sorry, that's made me upset now.
Don't be sorry.
Because I don't even know who that was. You know, that was all the victim was anonymous, so I didn't even know who that was. But what that story told to me was because the guy had like concealed his identity as well, and they found him and they convicted him, and now they're talking about him in MAPA. And I was just thinking, oh my God, I know so many men who should be being spoken about in this MAPA meeting right now, and wasn't in the same area, but like I could do my own mock. It was really scary. My own mock MAPA meeting with all the guys that I know would fill this list, and it would probably be longer than the list that you've got in front of you.
Yeah.
And not only that, but that woman who didn't know the identity of her attacker, I knew their identity. I knew their first name, I knew their last name, I knew where they lived, I knew what they looked like. And I knew several names of that, and that was all in Telford. So I was like, should I? And, you know, I used to wear a headscarf, so I was wearing a headscarf at the time. You know, when I converted to Islam, I was wearing a headscarf every day. I did that right from the beginning. And I did it because it was a really good way of getting men to leave me alone. So it was really easy. Then, not when I moved to a Muslim area, because then I got loads of attraction from Muslim men that wouldn't leave me alone. But when I was living in a predominantly white area, men respected the headscarf and left me alone. And I think that's, you know, I think that really shows that there are some really big issues with the way that men are treating women within the Muslim community. And yeah, so I'll just highlight that very briefly. But yeah, so I was on my way back from work, from that work placement, from that MAPA meeting. So the end of the day came. I've been thinking about it all day while I was preoccupied finishing work. And then I was walking home. And to walk home, it was a 15-minute walk, and I had to walk past the police station to get home. And I've been thinking to myself, I think, shall I report it? Shall I go back and report, like, I think I need to report, like, Shamil again, because I didn't report it as rape when it clearly was rape, and, like, if somebody's done something before, they're at really high risk of doing it again, like that guy who returned.
This had triggered you to...
Yeah, it absolutely triggered my mind, and I was, like, thinking all these thoughts.
But to walk into that police station, was there certain words that'd make them stand up and, like, take notes? Yeah,
so what I didn't say the first time, and what they were looking for me to say, was, did I want to take it, did I want them to investigate, and saying the likelihood of whether I'm going to attend court or not, and that I will go to court. And they want you to make that decision there and then when you report it, because if and hopefully they're a bit better than they were now than they were then, but if you said that you wouldn't take it to court, then they'd fob you off and they'd try and get rid of you, because there's no point them investigating.
Want to follow it up and just...
Yeah, if you're not going to go to court, then there's no point them doing all that work. So, you know, but they try and make you say that now,
as if that's, like, acceptable. Do you know, it's going for... Yeah, this is why...
Well, it's just stupid buzzwords that that they shouldn't need when they're investigating a crime. The buzzword should be rape, shouldn't it? The buzzword should be non-consent and assault, and, you know, those should be the buzzwords that they're looking for to investigate whether a crime has been committed, not whether you're going to...
This is why people probably are scared to, you know, to speak out and to go to the police, because, you know, they feel like they're not going to be believed, or they feel there should be some kind of something in place for people who are scared, who are intimidated, like yourself was, because it's not being followed up. It took you all that time to obviously go to the police. And so you finally went to the police and you spoke to them?
So that was 2010. I spoke to the Essex police, because that's where I was. He was like, ooh, it's historic, I might not, you know, historic cases, but we'll pass it on to the Telford police. When they passed it on to the Telford police were like, we know these guys, we're investigating them already.
Did they come down?
Operation Chalice was already going on. So I'd named a number of men who
were already on the radar.
Who were already on the radar for Operation Chalice, yeah. So it clicked them into actions. The names were the buzzwords in this one, which is the reason I wanted to report it in the first place, because at the MAPA meeting, they The woman didn't even, so one of the victims didn't even know her attacker and still reached a conviction. And for me, that was showing that, you know, I can give them these names and addresses, and I think I've got enough evidence, but, you know, I did and I didn't. So it did take a little bit more than what I was expecting, but, you know, I can literally, as a student nurse, as a third year student nurse, I have got a responsibility to public protection, and that's what the MAPA meeting, I was in the MAPA meeting because I have been trusted with this responsibility for public protection, and I need to, as a duty, as a nurse or a student nurse at the time, tell somebody about these men, that they exist and that they raped me, and therefore they are rapists that might be abusing somebody else. And I suspected that they had done it before. And before, at the time it was happening, I thought I was paranoid because I didn't have any respect for my intelligence. So I thought I was inferior to everybody, so I didn't realise that what I was thinking was worth anything or meant anything. I thought I must be wrong. Everything I thought was incorrect, so I didn't have any real right thoughts, correct thoughts. So I thought I was just paranoid, so I was like dismissing my thoughts. But then as a third year student nurse now, I'm getting to realise actually your observations are really important because you're a professional.
You need to
so you need to report what you saw and your suspicions are, and you need to tell people your suspicions.
You as an individual as well, okay, so, you know, for what you've endured, I know you hadn't found the courage to go and do that, but now as a professional, I understand what you're thinking about others, but then you're about yourself. You wanted to get, you know, justice for you.
Yeah, no, I didn't even care about me. One thing that really pisses me off about the justice system is the term justice system. Because I think...
Did you get it to court?
I did get it to court, but you know, justice was served, and, you know, I have managed to reach justice. But for me, that's not the important thing. What the important thing is protection of everybody else, and risk, and assessing risk to the public, and actually making sure that dangerous people are not able to continue to abuse people. And the justice system has annoyed me all the way throughout the investigation process, because it's all about whether I deserve justice or not. It's all about, you know, they're looking to judge me as a victim because they want to say, you know, she did it to herself,
She put herself
in that position, or was she doing any drugs, or was she drinking? I didn't drink, by the way, because I absolutely hated alcohol. So I'm not painting myself as a saint, but alcohol, I think I did well not to drink alcohol because it really inebriates you. Whereas things like cocaine, you're still alert, if you know what I mean, because it's an upper rather than a downer. Like and alcohol's really, really dangerous for it. They're all dangerous for you, but anyway, alcohol is the most dangerous addiction.
Yeah.
Out of all of them. So I think I'm really, really glad that I managed to avoid becoming addicted to alcohol or drinking too much alcohol, and that was because literally I hated it, and they would force it on me. They would try and ply me with alcohol, and I'd be like, you know, throwing it. I'd be throwing it.
Do you know when this was all brought to attention and it got to court? How long did it take to get to court, and how many of these despicable men?
So I reported 23 people in Telford. I didn't report Birmingham, and basically I had a conversation with the Birmingham police about reporting it, and they were two men that spoke to me, and I didn't find them very receptive to what I was trying to say, because again, from my point of view, I wasn't looking for justice for me. I was looking for protection of other people, and I thought the girls that I did know, if there were already investigations going on, I could be a witness to them because I knew the men and I knew I could place them in the same place.
The other people you could have supported and backed up that.
Yeah. And but they were really negative about it. They were like, one guy was like, oh well, don't take this the wrong way, but you don't look like a victim. You don't look vulnerable.
This a police officer?
Yeah. And, you know, I was reporting it a number of years later. And, you know, at the time, I'd actually, it was just after I'd taken like attempted to take my own life. And I'd still got ECG stickers on me while I was being raped. Yeah, and I'd shaved all my hair off. So I was like bald and I was really not mentally well. So, you know, and then they were saying to me, and this is the sort of thing I was considering reporting, and they're saying to me, oh, you know, you don't look like you're vulnerable.
Do you know, they're there to help you and these type of things, and I just find it a fucking outrageous, you know, and you know, was Ali was he convicted? Was he convicted?
Yeah. So thank you for stopping me going off on tangents, but yeah.
No,
so I reported 23 people in Birmingham, in
Telford.
In Telford, yeah, sorry. So I reported 23 people in Telford. They investigated 8 of them, I think, 8 or 9 of them. And I had to do video video ID parades for all of them, and some of them I didn't manage to identify, and I don't put too much blame on myself for that, but it's a sad scenario just because that would have been good evidence, and sometimes it didn't get to the CPS, couldn't take it because I couldn't ID them, and that's because they raped me once and I met them once, and that was 3 years ago, and I never saw them again, and you know, so I can't remember exactly what and when they put them next to 9 other individuals that are Pakistani that have got very similar skin tone and facial features, because so all the identifying marks that you remember them by are like taken away.
Yeah.
But that's how you do ID parades. So, you know, I can't blame the process, but yeah, it didn't help because like one guy was very identifiable. He'd got a scar on his face. He'd got like a pet. I could literally describe him to the T, but when it actually came to the ID parade and they put him next to loads of other people that fit the description, I was just like, he looks like all of them. Like if any of them had walked past me in the street, I would have freaked out thinking it was him because they look so similar. Yeah.
So what was the conviction that Ali Sultan got?
So 3 of them got to court. 1 of them was found not guilty, and he was a white man, and he was a soldier, and he had done his 5 years in the army by the time the court case came up. So he attended in his like army attire or something like that, and he also had a lawyer that was paid for by the army, and they just, to be fair, the prosecution was a bit of investigation was a bit of a shambles as well. So they picked apart some of the mistakes that the prosecution had made, and in the end, he was very clever, the barrister was, but he just confused the jury and confused me, confused the jury, probably confused the judge as well. Everyone was confused. The prosecution had messed up and made mistakes, so they didn't paint a very clear picture of what was going on. So they had to. So I think they had to find him not guilty because if there's any reasonable doubt, then they can't convict. Yeah. So it's a shame because the certain things we weren't allowed to say that we should have been allowed to say.
It's crazy. The justice system is absolutely bonkers.
Yeah, it doesn't make any sense. So I wasn't allowed to say that I'd already been raped and that I'd been raped by and that I'd continued to be raped in a gang scenario. And that was a key part of the reason that the motivation he'd got to rape me, because I was more vulnerable because he knew that I'd been raped by Shamil and he knew who Shamil was, and I didn't understand. So I think he had some connections with the gang, but I didn't know what they were.
What he was, yeah.
But they might have passed him with the girls, for example. So
he got a not guilty.
He was not. Yeah.
Did the other 3? Was it another 2 or 3?
There was another 2. So that was a really violent rape as well. He literally attacked me from the moment I opened the door, and I trusted him, and he literally ripped my pajamas, which I was really sad about. And then, and then I endured quite a long abusive assault, and he bit me as well, so he bit me on my face and my chest, and I got big bite mark bruise on my face and stuff. Yeah, and he was found not guilty.
It just makes me so angry.
Yeah.
It just makes me so angry and upset. It's just like how these people think it's acceptable to do, to do this. What you're just describing there, and reliving it and stuff. I can't explain how angry I am and upset I am for you. And then you've got these other two, and did they get found guilty? The other two.
So the other two were found guilty, thank God. In a way, I think, for God's sake, this justice system just, 1 out of 3. So 2 of them were Pakistani and 1 of them was white. So the Pakistanis were guilty as soon as they walked in the room, obviously, because they're brown. I mean, this is what the justice system is saying, not what I'm saying. And then the white man's obviously not guilty because he's a soldier and he's a good boy. So what is that justice system where literally white privilege is deciding whether the Pakistanis are going to be convicted or not? And what other crimes are we ignoring that because we're so focused on people of colour? And I'm not blaming the whole population of the UK, but I am blaming the justice system for being very white focused and white privilege minded and white supremacist built on, because the justice system is very, very old, and it's built in very, very old. It's ancient tradition, like thousands of years old tradition, when we still had slaves, and when black people were still slaves, and we've built a foundation on blaming people of colour more heavily than we have white people. And the Pakistanis raped me, and they're just as guilty as the white man.
Yeah.
But it's just really, pisses me off.
What was the judge in that? But what was the sentence in there that he passed down to the 2 Pakistani men who obviously?
Yeah. Okay. So I went to court for Shamil. And that was a 2-week course, and he actually beat me 4 times. So one time I couldn't remember in enough detail to stand up in court about it. So he was up for 3 counts of rape, and he was found guilty of 3 counts of rape, including the one that the first one that I'd reported, and they said things like there was so much evidence that he'd raped me that it was really easy to reach a verdict on those 3 rapes. And one of the really good, and I would pass this on to people to know as well, that one of the really good evidences was that I had tried to report it before.
Because it was documented when you'd been a couple of days after that.
Even though I had they had a statement on file that said it was consensual, they got the police officer up in court to state what I said, and she was able to then confirm that I did come to report a rape, and so she backed me up. I mean, probably thank God, because some police officers lie, don't they? And so they could have not told the truth. But so I know that she was the one, and we want to blame the police officers, and she's the one that was there getting me to sign the consent form and consensual form and stuff like that. But she did help me reach a conviction, and I think that hopefully she doesn't feel bad about. She might, because it's just continuously brought up in the press about it.
Of course it is.
Yeah.
But isn't it just, obviously he was sent to jail.
Yeah, he got 11 years.
11 years, but recently he was released, 2025.
No, that was Shamil. So Shamil's still in prison.
Oh, Shamil's still in prison.
Yeah. It's Ali Sultan that's been released.
Ali Sultan was, it is. Ali Sultan, And no one made you aware that he was released? Probation or anyone, or no one?
So they didn't tell me that they told me when he was released, but they didn't tell me until the last minute that he was going to be released. So where they've messed up is that
Is this the probation or is it
It's the parole board.
Parole board, sorry.
And the, what are they called? The liaison officers. The
Family liaison or?
No, like prison liaison officer or something like that. It's called victim liaison officer. So he did really apologise to me, and he kind of explained, that he's new to the job, and there's also, like, by the sounds of it, and this is what he was saying, or 'cause sometimes I've talked to him and asked him questions, and he's like, I just need to, so this is not an excuse, but he's going, I just need to look it up on this system, because I'm on a different system at the moment, and I can't see it from this system, so I've got to log into that system. And
that doesn't wash for me. If you're
Well,
in a what's the name of that, what
well,
you're doing.
if you say you're a victim liaison officer, yeah,
you need to know how to do your job properly.
I know, but like, if you can't even get the information for yourself to know what's going on, how do you know where you're gonna pass that on to the person?
To the victim.
Yeah, and I don't know how many victims he has either, or survivors he has on his caseload, because he might have like 30 or something like that, and so he's got to use like multiple systems, so because nobody alerts him or or her whether when things are going up, he has to like check it all out himself individually. So I don't think the communication is very good. So I'm just thinking, so I learned about this thing called human factors, right, which is it's human factors in healthcare was a push from the NHS to try and learn, rather than victim blaming and rather than blaming an individual for things that go wrong within an organisation, in serious incidents and things like that, and looking at the whole picture of what's going wrong. Things like the systems, the communication, the policies and procedures and things like that, and how an organisation works as a whole, and how that organisation as a whole led to this incident, rather than one person be the one to blame. And I think that's a really good way of looking at it, because but I'm not the one to be able to bring that up. That needs to be brought up by the people working within that system, because I don't know what's wrong with it, if you see what I mean. So all I've got to blame is the individual. So because I'm at the very bottom, and he's my only connection to them. So
yeah.
So yeah, so I wasn't aware because he wasn't aware, and then he sent me a letter, because he was probably made aware then. He sent me a letter just saying, oh yeah, by the way, matter of factly, Ali Sultan's going to be released. They've had his parole hearing. They said it was on the 31st of December, and it just came literally out of the blue.
And it's obviously that's just like panic stations. That's just like the fear and stuff of it's just flashbacks again and stuff. But
by this point, I'm at work. I'm like, I've got a full-time job. I was working as a primary care mental health practitioner. It's very, very responsible, and I'm autonomous. I'm autonomous in my decision making with patients, right? And I was seeing like 6 or 7 patients a day, and then quickly in my break from work, I'm like looking at my phone, and I can see an email from him saying Ali Sultan's getting released, and then I just
meant to get back onto your job and
exactly.
focus.
I literally have to bracket that and see the next patient, because they're already here and I can't cancel it, and just carry on with my job.
It's so scary, and everything that you've described and spoke to us about.
They treat you like a victim all the time, and the term victim has got like a special meaning within the justice system. You've got a special role. It's a legal term, but then they just treat you like this vulnerable piece of prey that has been wronged all the time, even when actually I am more responsible than you, arguably. Not you, but the people who are thinking that I'm this poor victim that has no control and no say over anything, and they're still victimizing me because they're still treating me as that victim. And so they're just like, oh, this poor little victim, oh, has anybody told her? Oh no, we better tell her. By the way, he's getting out of prison, thought you might want to know. But I should have been able to send a victim impact statement something like 6 months before the parole hearing was even there.
None of that, no.
I didn't have any of that, so I didn't even have that right.
So that would have given you the heads up straight away,
yeah. And then they said that I would be able to get asked for a reconsideration. So they asked for a reconsideration, but they didn't put it for the reasons that I said, which was that I didn't have a chance to give an impact statement. And I think the reason they didn't submit that was because my victim impact statement is worthless to the actual decision. That's what I think. They're just humouring me. They're just humouring the victims by saying, "Oh yes, we'll take this into consideration when we," but they're not going to. They're just going to read it out because, it's the victim should be involved somehow in the decision. But there's no.
You don't get.
You don't get any involvement. And the thing is, you might be the person who knows that perpetrator better than any of them.
Of course, yeah.
Because you were the one that was alone in the room with him when he was being himself in front of you. Yeah.
Your book, The Patchwork Girl.
Mm-hmm.
Do you want to tell us a little bit about that?
So I've just signed the contract with the publisher. So we haven't got an official date yet that it will be released, but they say that it's coming out sort of 2026. So we're looking at sometime next year, and that's just because of the amount of books that they have to release, and just gets put in the list of books to anyway. So timing is 2026. I'm really happy and excited about it, and I am hoping that I can help more people, and by sort of sharing my story. And the reason that I like to try and share this story of the grooming gangs is because I've met so many survivors of grooming gangs now who say that they've been helped by my explanation for things. I've had some really, really amazing feedback from some of the survivors.
And stuff,
who said that they really felt like I'd captured their mental state, and
they could relate.
They could relate, but not only relate, they finally figured it out because of the way I've worded it, what was going on with them. And I really appreciate, because that's exactly the kind of person what I'm trying to do. That's exactly the
raise
kind of
awareness,
person I'm
don't sit in silence.
But raise awareness of the mental process that is going on in your head as a survivor or a victim of something, and stop you from blaming yourself.
Of course.
Yeah, because if you can understand yourself and why you made certain moves, then that's the pathway to forgiveness, and that's the pathway to healing. And I find that really, really, that's why I really want to pass to people, because I was able to forgive myself for all the, silly little mistakes that I made, or whatever I've been through my journey, the putting myself in those very dangerous positions, because I understand why I did it now. So I don't even though I look back and I'm like, yeah, I did do that, I don't have the same guilt and shame and horror
as you did, when you're thinking back.
Yeah.
I just, I just want to say, we've sat here for a good few hours and we've spoke very deep. We've done 70 odd episodes, and we had a similar guest on to yourself, Gemma, bipolar mum. What I've just sat and listened to, and what I've I've been in tears, and I've just sort of thinking to myself, how can someone do that to somebody else? And, you're a brave, courageous, tough, strong, and I say inspiring because sitting there to tell your story to other victims out there, or the survivors, not victims, survivors, and I think they'll get a lot from this. And I just want to say, it takes a lot for what you've just done, and like I said, we've done 70 odd episodes, and I think this one's probably been one of the toughest ones I've ever had to listen to your story. And I just want to say thank you for being so brave and so courageous, and you know, thank you. You know, I really mean that.
Oh, thank you.
I just want to say, you know, how can anyone contact you on, like?
Yeah, so I'll just tell you a little bit more about what's going on with me as well, because I'm not working in the GP practices anymore, but I would really like to set up my own practice. So I'm really hoping to do that in the future. I haven't, so I'm in the process at the moment of developing a website and setting myself
People
up as a
contact
private
you.
business. Yeah, well, as a mental health business, you know, sort of, and it wouldn't be necessarily just for survivors, but actually for anybody who needs any support with their mental health. Because my experience working in primary care has been really inspiring in terms of sort of bringing a mental health professional into the general public. So things like, you know, you don't have to have a serious mental health issue to have an appointment with me. So that's the idea behind it. You can have an appointment with me if you're experiencing stress at work or bullying at
Yeah,
work
there's
or
certain
something.
different things that there's different services you can offer.
Yeah. But I can, you know, I can deal with the smaller things in life to the more serious mental health issues as well. So now that I'm not doing that role, I'm really missing it.
Yeah, so you want to get back into that.
And some of my old clients are missing me as well. So I'd like to get back into that. So I'm going to do it privately. And, you know, unfortunately, when you do something private, you have to charge people. But I'm hoping one day that I can maybe get commission for, you know,
Listen, you get funding or someone can help you, yeah.
Yeah, funding or sponsorship or what's it called? Like
investment, someone
referral processes or something like that, like block bookings and stuff like that. Yeah. So at the moment, it's not set up. So if people want to contact me, they can contact me on Twitter, which is X now, and that's that's Kate at Elysia Truth.
Yeah.
And
Instagram, do you use much of Instagram so people can contact?
I use Instagram as well, so that's at Kate Elysia Rising.
Right. Okay. So if anyone wants to reach out, they can do that. They can contact you on there.
Yeah. And another thing I just want to say as well is that I am a student sex and relationship therapist as well, and I'm actually doing my course at the moment. This is going to be the bank. We're here on the bank holiday of May, and everybody was. On my way here, everybody's going camping and stuff like that. But actually, I'll be on my course this weekend, so it's quite full on. And I'm crowdfunding for the course fees. At the moment, I've only got 8% of the amount that I need, and I'm 33% of the way through the course now. So
just keep pushing and put it on, and we'll add it to the the link and stuff like that. You know.
Okay, yeah. So any help that anybody can give me, I'll be so grateful for, and they are helping me create this support for other people that I'm hoping to pass on.
Absolutely unbelievable.
What my dream job would be to like have that set up for mental health, but also have a special section within a website for survivors. So you could just like have like a private members page that you don't have to pay for, but if I've identified you as a survivor, I can log you into there, I can give you login details, and then you can have access to all this survivor support, information, positive thinking, and blogs and things like that, and maybe podcasts if I ever manage to get to do that. Yeah.
Listen, Kate, I just want to say, look,
it's just a dream at the moment.
No,
right at the drawing board.
It's good to have a dream, and considering what you've been through, and to be so positive and whatever, I just want to say, you know, look, it's been really an emotional episode, this one, and I just want to say thank you so much for sharing the good, the bad and the ugly.
Oh, thank you. Lovely to meet you.
Thank you very much, love.